Testing, testing, 1 2 1 2. Are we live? Are we live? 早上好，中国。现在我有冰淇淋，我很喜欢吃冰淇淋，因为冰淇淋非常好吃。There's a bit of grass cutting outside my window. Hopefully it's not too loud. I have my mic turned down a little bit because of that. But yeah, we live? We live? Hey! Hello, vocalist lover. Hey, guys. Oh, prepping this stream has been a bit of a journey. I'm not going to lie. But anyways, we'll have enough time later on to talk about that. In the meantime, things are. I kind of got my wish after last stream that, like, you know, nothing too big is going to happen over the next week or so. And to be fair, I don't think I've seen any like massive corporate blunders in the VTubing space over the past week. But everything else has been like falling apart. I have no clue what's going on in the UK. I've never been as concerned for my favorite creators who live in a different part of the world than I have been for the creators that currently reside in the UK. Omen, thank you for the 5. We live, though work hours will probably be VOD hours. We live. Oh, we live, sorry. And no shame in joining the VOD gang. I appreciate you tuning in, and thank you for the super chat. It's very generous of you. Don't jinx it. I'm not that powerful. I'm not that powerful. I don't have the ability to make these things happen. I just talk about them once they've already happened. The tiger situation has gotten worse because well, I was watching a clip by I think the channel's name was Functional Tigerholic, and that was rough. On the bright side, the stalker has made it a little bit easier to trace, how do I say this? Has provided a bit more information on themselves to the point where serving them with a cease and desist is now probably a lot easier than it was a few weeks ago. And I have seen on Twitter that Tygo's posting that he's now looking into possibly getting a lawyer. So I really do hope that that helps. Tiger, as in Bungo Tiger. Also, a lot of the stuff about... Actually, the Nuxtaku, Marina VT, and Cat Liente stuff has got me thinking about a possible stream, and I might make a community post about this to get the thoughts of more people than are just in this live stream right now, as to whether you guys would be interested in a stream about drama tubers. Because the thing is, right, and this is the main problem with the concept of a drama tuber, quote unquote, is that it is both a legitimate thing that exists in this space, and it's also used as an insult. So the problem is, what that does is, it makes it so that a lot of people don't have a clear idea of exactly what a drama tuber is. They have like a vague idea. They can spot it when it's happening, but it's really hard to sort of, you know, get ahead of the curve in identifying, diagnosing that someone is drama tubing. And also, it makes it more difficult to sort of pin down actual bad faith, bad practice reporting. Because, again, since it's used as an insult, people who are genuinely guilty of doing so, genuinely guilty of drama tubing, I should say, have more leeway to sort of just shrug that off. But anyways, Marina VT is a piece of work. Yeah, she is quite infamous in this space. Yeah. Stream about why influencers shouldn't say stuff. It's not so much that influencers shouldn't say stuff, because again, I don't want to make it like I don't want to make it as if I don't want people to talk about things at all or in general, right? Because the blanket, that's just not a great, I don't really like putting out that particular like message. It's more about, again, and I don't want to make the slippery slope of saying like, oh, all of these people need to be thought of as journalists. No, that's not it either. But I do want to establish that drama tubing is a specific phenomenon that involves a specific set of bad faith practices that defines when someone is engaging in drama tubing. Drama tuber itself, like as a term, I don't really like it, purely because of the fact that drama tubing, the practice, is more of a problem than the label. So, yeah. There was something that Tiger was saying in the clip that I watched, something along the lines of how people didn't really care that the copyright system, oh no, not the copyright, the reporting function on YouTube wasn't really, like, people didn't really care that it was being abused until it started happening to more people. And watching him say that kind of, it's a very sobering thing to hear, because he's honestly absolutely right. I do hope that at some point in the future, like I said in another tweet that I made about the situation, I think in response to Lord Morlington, when I was talking about how YouTube should be more transparent with the way that it hands out penalties and reports, deals with reports. I hope that at some point in the future, you have a rich creator that has nothing better to do, or a government that just, a government that gets grumpy enough with its, with the way its citizens are treated, that, they'll finally launch some sort of suit or something to force YouTube to be more transparent in that regard. Because right now the reporting system is like broken. There is no way around it. It is not working as intended. And I would say that, even though they've implemented it under the pretext that it's for the greater good, I think the costs of implementing it the way that it is now are simply too high for it to be a viable method of addressing whatever problems they are trying to deal with. And that actually ties in with the other thing that I was talking about before. Google finally got declared a monopoly less than 48 hours ago. And again, what that means, no one really knows, because, the US courts won the case without knowing how they were going to penalize Google afterwards. But let's say, hypothetically, that Google were to be forced to sell off YouTube. Without, if that were to be the case, I could see that being like, possibly a catalyst to YouTube actually having to improve its features for once, instead of just having the luxury of not having to care about, like, how it treats its users and its creators. But that is idealistic thinking that is very far in the future, relatively speaking. Because I'm assuming that there's still going to be like months, if not years worth of like an appeal process as Google tries to shake off that particular verdict. Scarling, welcome to the stream. Rin Penrose was Google is I mean, at this point, it is really obvious that Google is a monopoly, but like, these things, even though they're obvious to us when we use the service every day, when we when we have a lot of experience with people complaining about like the shortcomings of the platform, etc., we understand this. But lawmakers are basically, unfortunately, because most of them are kind of old and not really on the internet, this is stuff that is fairly new to them. So the fact that they were able to push through with this verdict is a massive win for pretty much everyone except for Google. But yeah, Google could stall? Isn't YouTube running in the negative? I would assume so. And I assume that the reason why it's able to do that is because Google is so massive. So Google becoming less massive would probably mean that YouTube has to make itself a more appealing product in order to stay running. I would hope. It's a little, again, it's a little idealistic, but I hope that that's the case. Hope Rin does well. I haven't seen all the announcements about Rin. I've only seen the stuff about Aqua leaving. Rip Onion. She will be missed. Anyways, okay. So, actually, it's funny that we started touching on the idea of corporations and monopolies, because that is going to be one of the things that will come up later on in this stream. So, let me just switch over. All right, excellent. Everything's working. You guys can see me. Hey, all right. For some reason, the YouTube chat overlay seems to have broken, so I can't make it see-through anymore, but anyways. Okay, so today, the main thing that we're going to be talking about is the disastrous entrance into the Western VTubing scene that has recently been attempted by NOA or NOA Talent. And to understand exactly how all of this cascaded, I'm going to need you guys to go back in time a little bit to when people first started becoming aware that NOA existed. And as a disclaimer, two things. First, I want to make sure that you do not attempt to contact, harass, or in any way interact with any of the people that I'm going to be mentioning over the course of this stream. And second is just a little housekeeping thing. A few of the dates that I've listed might be off by 1 day or so, and that's mostly due to time zone differences since I live in Australia. But anyways, on June 12, 2024, Sayu had a stream called Chillin' Hag Day La La La, where she mentioned that she was finally going to be joining another corpo, that she had found a place that had made her an offer that was appealing enough to warrant her participation in that particular venture. Now, this was exciting news because, again, it was kind of like a nature is healing type scenario, right? Sayu's been through a lot, and having the support of a corpo after so long of being forcibly polarized by people who seem to be out to get her for no reason on the internet, that is a pretty significant change. And so, a lot of other people got excited about it as well. I want to give a preemptive shout out to the people on r/Nijisanji and the people at the Virtual Asylum, TVA, because they've been instrumental in compiling and archiving a lot of the material that I'm going to be using in this stream, and I would not have access to it if they had not done that. So, on the same day, a user by the name of Malik Denaeth posted in r/Nijisanji saying, "Seems like Sayu will be joining a corpo in the near future." She hinted at it here, linking to that Twitch VOD, and speculated that it was probably the next Phase Invaders. Out of the options I've discussed, that sounds like the most plausible. Either way, good for her. So again, Sayu did say that she had been told that speculation was fine, although no explicit details would be given until much later. So, people did just that, and a lot of the initial speculation centered around Phase Connect. However, later on, a few hours later, a user by the name of Lion Maru Fan would make a post clarifying that no, the corpo Sayu was joining was not Phase Connect, but in fact another one by the name of NOA Talent, a Chinese company that specializes in Bilibili, and stating that it feels worrisome. A few points that they listed. A company called NOA Talent only has 3 staff members: CEO, manager, audition manager, LinkedIn page, and again, all of these details talking about exactly how NOA Talent describes themselves, we will get to in a second. But the things that I want to touch on are the last 2 points. This is the proof that NOA Talent is actually the place where Sayu was going. This is the NOA Talent YouTube page, which has small VTubers, 100 plus or fewer live audiences each. Some have only 30 to 100 subscribers, and it looks like an abandoned channel, with proof. And when you click on this proof, it takes you to an archived version of the NOA Talent YouTube channel. At this point in time, only had 21 subscribers, only had 5 videos, self-described agency supporting creators on the arc of entertainment. Now, when you scroll down and to the place where it listed its talents, you had essentially its core generation, what I assumed it was going to be walking into the Western market with. Their roster being Noro, someone who at the time had less than 1k subscribers, Noie, a NOA Talent that had around 300 subscribers, and Serge, one of their largest talents that had over 100k subscribers. Now, Noie and Serge, I want you to remember those names. Those will be important later. However, that wasn't the only thing about this webpage that was important to notice, because right under that, they had a section called NOA Raven Project Kuro, and under this section, they listed the names of the names and profiles of 3 other VTubers: Sayu Synchronicity, Sagisawa Ria, and Rita Kamishiro. And all 3 of these are not official NOA talents. What had essentially happened was that someone at NOA, had updated their YouTube channel and unintentionally leaked who the people who are going to be joining them, or who were considering joining them, were. So, again, I want to stress this. People had been told through Sayu that it was okay to speculate, but people only picked up that this was actually the place where she was going because NOA themselves somehow managed to leak it. There's one other part of the webpage that I want to bring to your attention as well, and that's the section underneath that. NOA Affiliates, with only 3 names: EOS, Kyokeu, and Azaru Official. Now, when we look through all the different names of, these various types of rosters, we can conclude that, NOA Covenant is their core roster. We can conclude that Raven Project Kuro is going to be similar to FaZe Connect's invaders, so people that they've brought in from outside of NOA Talent, but we don't quite know what NOA Affiliates means. And again, that's something else I want you to put a pin in, because we'll be coming back to what exactly they mean by affiliates in a little bit. So, again, people had discovered, okay, this is where Sayu was going, and then they started digging for more information on who exactly NOA Talent is, because, like I said before, pretty much nobody knew that they existed before it was found that Sayu was joining. If you go to their website, and to be completely honest, their website is not exactly the most well-maintained web page in existence. It often has regular breaks happening in terms of the elements on the screen, etc. But anyways, they describe themselves in their About page as the following. Welcome at NOA Talent. NOA Talent is dedicated to creating a diverse and innovative virtual entertainment experience. As the English division of the famous Chinese MCN called Metishan, NOA Talent focuses on discovering and nurturing virtual talents with global appeal, and bridging the charm of virtual art with audiences worldwide. Now, that sounds pretty, But when you remove all of the marketing spin and advertising gobbledygook, what that basically means is that NOA Talent is designed to act as an English subsidiary of Metashon, a Chinese MCN. Essentially, they are the English branch of a larger agency, is one way that you can think about it. To go on, NOA Talent harbors a unique mission to scout, cultivate, and promote virtual talents with a universal charm, with our headquarters nestled in the bustling city of Los Angeles. I wouldn't exactly describe Los Angeles as bustling, but go on. NOA Talent is strategically positioned to tap into extensive resources and a network of professional management. Our offerings are comprehensive, encompassing everything from state-of-the-art live 2D and 3D model creation to content innovation, brand marketing, and technical support. Our ambition to forge a dynamic, creative community of virtual artists, propelling each talent to stardom on our platform and delivering unparalleled entertainment to audiences across the globe. Again, removing all of the advertising language, their mission is twofold. One, to bring on talents and give them a wider audience, and two, to expand their reach, or presumably the reach of their parent company, into different parts of the world from where they originated, namely China. In terms of the things that they offer to these talents that they are going to be taking on, they list things like technology, right? Advanced 2D and 3D model creation. Content innovation is just another way of saying to help them with making whatever content they are currently making and whatever content they are thinking of making. Brand marketing. Again, you are going to be creating promotional campaigns for the talents you take on. And finally, technical support. Now, the other thing that they say that they offer is a network of professional management, which is interesting when you go down to their list of staff. Now, their staff include 3 members. He Xiaotong, the CEO, and I hope I'm saying his name right, although I don't think I've heard a Chinese person pronounce it, so I could be wrong with that pronunciation. Miko, a talent manager, and Quinn, an audition manager. Now, of the 3, Miko is by far the least known, because apart from a single Twitter profile, which only has a few posts, I don't think she's actually said or done anything of note. And to be fair, that kind of fits with her profile, right? She is, after all, a talent manager. Presumably, she would be working behind the scenes. But the 2 that I want to focus on are He Xiaotong and Quinn. Now, in the Nijisanji post that I referenced before, it did link to the LinkedIn profile of NOA Talent itself, and we will get to that in a second. However, I went and looked up the LinkedIn profiles for both of these people as well. Let's go through He Xiaotong's first. Now, in his profile, he lists himself as being a Hoyoverse partner. Immediately, you start to understand exactly what is the appeal of this, this branch of Metashon as an MCN. If they have connections to Hoyoverse, that is pretty massive for any streamer that is very interested or has expressed a historical interest throughout their career in Hoyo games, right? So this explains why Sayu might have been pretty interested in this MCN, aside from all of the support, of course. And then also they list, He Xiaotong lists that he is a Bilibili Japanese division partner, a talent agent, and a producer. So, self-described, with 8 years of international marketing and public relations experience, 5 years of project management and planning, and a year of translation under my belt, I am a seasoned professional skilled in operating both in English and Chinese. My diverse experience spans several industries and roles, making me well-rounded in handling various tasks and responsibilities. In China, I am recognized as a prominent producer and lyricist, known for my proficiency in writing. Over the years, I've penned 10 popular songs, all of which have been utilized as theme songs for renowned Chinese anime and video games. My ability to combine artistic talent with an understanding... It's kind of funny, because after watching Phase Connect clips for a while, I can no longer read the word artistic and interpret it the way that it's, meant to be read. But anyways... Understanding of consumer desires has led these works to gain widespread acclaim. In addition to my creative pursuits, I am an experienced entrepreneur, having founded the well-known animation studio Eclipse Animation. The success of this studio attracted the attention of Quican Comics platform, which eventually led to an acquisition. Furthermore, my entrepreneurial achievements were recognized when I was included in the 2019 Huron Under 30s Entrepreneurial Leaders List. These experiences have helped me hone my skills in leadership, strategic planning, and creative direction. So, a few things. First, this guy is experienced. Nearly a decade's worth of experience in, quote, international marketing and public relations experience, half a decade of experience with project management and planning, and a year of translation. However, here's the problem. Pretty much all of that experience, I would bet, comes from operating a business that aims to go international or deals with international agents in China. And when he says that he is a seasoned professional skilled in operating both in English and Chinese, that just means that he is fluent in both languages. It doesn't mean that he understands the audiences that, the English-speaking audiences that might lie outside of China. So, again, I really want to reiterate that this is a well-connected corpo. This is a corpo with resources, with people who are experienced when it comes to VTubing as an industry, but they are not familiar with Western audiences. Now, moving on to Quinn. Oh, sorry. First thing that I wanted to go through before getting to Quinn is the fact that when he lists all of his achievements at NOA Talent, he states that, NOA Talent is a pioneering subsidiary of Metashon. Again, Metashon, that name keeps coming up, and we will get to that in a second. And that, again, a lot of the marketing centers around the idea of strategic direction, operational excellence, international expansion of our company. So this is a company that is starting in China and looking to expand outwards, right? But again, I haven't seen anything in this particular profile that would indicate to me that they have any sort of experience with audiences outside of China, or even how to connect with those audiences outside of China. And again, he lists, his sort of the responsibilities that he's taken on as the CEO of NOA Talent, right? Developing and implementing growth strategies, fostering partnerships with key stakeholders, leading our talented team towards achieving our vision of global digital entertainment leadership. Again, a lot of marketing spin, but basically, his job is to make connections with important people and organizations so that his business can expand outwards. But moving on to Quinn. Now, Quinn is an interesting case because Quinn is based in California, United States. Presumably, this is the half of upper management that is responsible for making sure that there is a smooth transition from the Chinese market into the Western market. Quinn has a Twitter profile where she states that she is the co-founder, as well as being a manager, scout, and coordinator for NOA Talent. So again, Quinn has a pretty big role to play at NOA. She is a co-founder, and as she states, she is a manager, although not a talent manager for NOA, but an audition manager for NOA. Now, I want you to remember that fact. She is an audition manager for NOA. That will become important later. So, Quinn describes herself in the following: Passionate, forthright, creative manager who is goal-oriented and organized with experience managing the online presence of companies and brand and helping talents create content and brand. Managing multiple creators on various platforms, providing organization, stability, structure, and planning, thrives in busy situations where decisions need to be made wisely and promptly. Strong management, communication, and leadership skills, best working in a position that entails giving guidance, managing time, planning, and providing organization and structure. Motivated to find a position with entertainers that utilize communication and management skills. So, again, removing all of the marketing spin, Quinn's experience centers around two things. Organizational corporate structuring, right? Making sure that, there is stability and foresight in the way that the organization she works for operates. And two, managing talents, right? Making sure that they are supported, using her communication skills to make their lives easier. Now, on the topic of skills, when you go down into the section where she lists her experience at NOA Talent, there are a few skills that she lists. Now, the dot points are, her official roles are to scout and contract talent and independent contractors, to set up and manage Discord servers for company and talents. This is important. Quinn is in charge of the company Discord. Because again, this will become a plot point later. Review auditions and manage bank accounts. And underneath that, she lists 20 skills. Now, there are a few that are a little repetitive, so the total list is around 19. But, and I'm listing out all of the individual skills that she lists here, they are management, contract management, document management, account management, project management, event management, time management, communication, cross-functional team leadership, teamwork, team coordination, project coordination, human resources and development, documentation, analytical skills, contract negotiation, financial reporting, leadership, organizational skills. Now, with all of this in mind, right? One gaping hole that you might have started to notice by now is zero PR. They do not have a designated PR representative. They have not listed public relations, at least as far as it applies to the Western market, as a skill that either of these two founders have, because I want to make it very clear, when someone lists communication as a skill, that does not necessarily mean that they have received PR training, right? And again, even though He Xiaotong does list that he has experience with public relations, that is public relations in China. That is very different from public relations in the West. So again, what we have here is an upper management that has a variety of skills, a variety of connections, most of which are really strong, really appealing to creators and other agencies that might look to partner up with them. However, again, neither of them seem to have any sort of PR training. And I haven't exactly seen that they've contracted anyone to act as a consultant, or that they've actually sought out some sort of external help or a retained PR team, I suppose. And again, that will become a major problem in the near future. So, we've talked about the upper management when it comes to NOA Talent, what skills they've listed, what experiences they've listed, how they describe themselves. Now, I want to touch on the page that NOA Talent itself has set up for itself on LinkedIn, because this will give more information on what exactly they're trying to do and what exactly their appeal is. So, about us, NOA Talent, a subsidiary of Metashon. Again, that name, Metashon, popping up, stands at the forefront of the global entertainment revolution. With a specialized focus on VTuber and digital content creators, founded with the vision to bridge the gap between exceptional international talents and the burgeoning Chinese digital market. NOA Talent is your gateway to Bilibili, China's premier online entertainment platform. Our mission is to unlock new opportunities for creators and to introduce a new era of digital entertainment that transcends geographical boundaries. And just like that, they have managed to describe both their key appeal and their key weakness. Because NOA Talent is built to, quote, bridge the gap between the international talents and Chinese digital market while acting as a gateway to Bilibili. What that means is that NOA Talent was built with a very specific function in mind. They bring in international talents into China via Bilibili. This is what they're used to. This is what they're good at. The problem is that they were faced with a problem that invalidates both their experience and their connections, which are mostly in China, because instead of doing this, they were now attempting to do this. Instead of expanding into China, they were attempting to expand outside of China. And instead of taking people to Bilibili, they were trying to take talents that perhaps were grown on Bilibili into the Western audience, right? To Western audiences onto Western platforms, like, for example, YouTube, like, for example, Twitch, and like, for example, Twitter. Now, I want to be fair in my presentation of, how well NOA was doing with their expansion, because they were making progress with it. As of, between the dates of July 1st to 10th, NOA Talent did make headway in terms of finding different partners and announcing different events that would get them onto a lot of people's radars, right? On July 1st, NOA Talent announced that they are going to be joining Bilibili World 2024 Expo in Shanghai between July 12th and July 14th, where they invited other people to go along. If I remember correctly, I do believe that Depressed Nasagi and Sayu were both invited to attend this event as well. And to be fair, I think they did get quite a bit out of attending that event. They got to meet cool people, make important connections, etc., etc. However, on the note of making connections, NOA Talent would also announce on July 10th that they had unveiled that they were going to be in a strategic partnership with Mythic Talent. Now, Mythic Talent is pretty massive in the West. They manage some pretty significant creators, right? I mean, being operated by the OTK gang is, being affiliated with the OTK gang, being, I believe, founded by Asmongold, if I remember that correctly. That is pretty, they carry a lot of weight. Their name carries a lot of weight. And they've recently partnered up with talents like Rima Evanstar, for example. So, according to this post, this milestone collaboration marks a new chapter for NOA as we embark on a journey to bridge the gap between Western and Eastern markets like never before. Together with Mythic, we aim to redefine industry standards and unlock unprecedented opportunities for their talents and our partners in the Chinese market. Now, what I assume that means is that Mythic is big in the West, NOA is big in the East, and essentially they want to be able to swap access to each other's audiences for each other's content creators. So, as a result of that, this partnership would have stood to be mutually beneficial. Again, both of them act as pseudo gatekeepers for their respective audiences. And as a result of that, this partnership would have allowed them to freely cross-pollinate. So, we can start to get a picture of exactly why NOA was so appealing and exactly what sort of connections NOA was succeeding at making. So, on the Chinese end of things, on the eastern side of things, NOA was connected to a Chinese MCN called Metashon. Now, again, Metashon is, well, A lot of people have described Metashon as shady, and to be honest, I can't blame them, because if you try to search up what Metashon is, you pretty much get no results. It's really hard to find information on them. And the only things that we can tell, again, not specifically from a website owned by Metashon themselves, but rather from disparate bits of information gathered from disparate parts of the internet, are that Metashon is connected with Hoyoverse, and they are connected with Bilibili. And as a result, by extension, Noa ends up having connections to these two entities as well. And their connection to these two entities is what makes them appealing to Western agencies looking to expand eastward, like Mythic, and what has also gotten them into various events that they were announcing throughout the entire month of July. So things like Animathon, things like Vexpo, etc., etc. So NOA Talent was by no means failing to expand westward. They were getting invited to events. They were getting partnered with significant entities. For all intents and purposes, things were going smoothly. And that is where the twin disasters that I'm about to talk about, both of which have to do with recent terminations that were made within days of one another, come in. Now, before I start talking exactly about what happened and about how the PR strategy for this was lackluster, to say the least, I want to establish that all PR strategies, regardless of what you do, regardless of who you are, aim to address two problems. Two core problems that you have to take into account when you're crafting your strategy. The first problem is that what you say might not be what your audience hears. The two are different things. Now, I've had multiple diagrams and stuff in past streams where I've tried to explain how exactly this happens, but broadly speaking, if you're using a social platform to communicate with your audience, especially if you're using a social platform to communicate with your audience, your message ends up getting warped by both the platform itself and other messages about the same topic that are put onto the platform next to yours. And both of those things combined will end up changing the way that you come across to your potential audience, right? So it's never as straightforward a process of this is what I'm going to say and this is what my audience is going to hear. The second fundamental problem, and this is a big one that a lot of corporos seem to struggle with, effective PR cannot make up for ineffective management. And again, in the past, when I've talked about the shortcomings of bad PR, the difference between effective PR, which is good at influencing public opinion and perception, versus good PR, which is both effective and ethical, right? Most companies will settle for effective PR as a sort of band-aid solution to a gaping problem in the way that they operate. And the main problem is that PR can never act as a solution to those problems, to those gaping holes, right? When you are a company, when you are a corporation, it doesn't matter how effective your PR is, because long term, regardless of how competent your PR team is, regardless of how compelling your messages are, they will not work if your management is bad, if your internal work environment, if your work practices are not up to snuff as well. So, when it comes to establishing a PR strategy, there are two key frameworks that we usually use in order to get a basic idea of what we are walking into. Two basic frameworks that form the core of our responses to these two respective problems, right? Audience management and, managing yourself, essentially, right? The first one is something called a pest analysis. This is analysis that tells you about who your audience is, right? So PEST stands for 4 different factors that you take into account. Political, which includes government policies, legislation, and industry regulations. Economic, meaning currencies, interest rates, skill levels in your workforce, and inflation. Social attitudes, demographics, education, and purchasing habits. And finally, technological, access to and impacts of technology, research, and design. So, here's the thing, right? This is usually stuff that, again, this is stuff that every PR consultant, maybe not according to this exact acronym, but this is something that pretty much any PR consultant will be doing when you hire them. I'm just giving out this information so that, again, more people understand how this works. So, when you do a pest analysis, right, it is very important that you take into account all 4 of these, because if you neglect any one of them, that in and of itself is a hole that is large enough for your entire strategy to fall through. So, for this particular analysis, in terms of the things that NOA Talent seems to have messed up with, I'm going to be focusing on social and technological, specifically social attitudes and impacts of technology. When it comes to the political, I'm assuming they're fine. If they have a base in Los Angeles, chances are they are familiar with, US laws and stuff like that. I'm also not worried about their economic, the economic factors, because again, they're operating out of China, not Japan, and while China is by no means free of economic turmoil, I don't think it has to worry about things like its currency going up and down in value or things like interest rates just yet. And I think the skill levels are fine in the country, if not so much among the staff. Oh, Mercurius Orlicus, thank you for the 2. I greatly appreciate Armchair's TED Talks. It's very kind of you to say so. So, when it comes to social attitudes, there were a few factors that NOA didn't really seem to understand, or at least underestimated. The first is that Bilibili and China, as of today, is a massive brand risk. Ever since Hollow China ended up imploding, the entirety of the Western VTubing audience has been primed against China, right? Which is admittedly a little bit of a shame. I have no doubt that there are Chinese talents, Chinese fans of VTubers that are, genuinely, that genuinely just want to engage with the industry in good faith. But again, what happened in that the harassment campaign that occurred against Coco Kiryu and other members of HoloLive on Bilibili proved to audiences 2 things. 1, Chinese aunties are a different breed. And 2, Bilibili was not at all equipped to moderate them sufficiently. And you can see that this attitude in response to an event that happened a few years ago now has still persisted, and arguably understandably so, right? It's such a concern that in a recent shareholder meeting with Cover, the shareholders actually specifically asked about, what are you going to do if a second Bilibili catastrophe happens, right? This was something that legitimately worried shareholders, in addition to just audiences, and I would assume behind the scenes, management and talents. You also have the fact that when Kobo made her re-debut onto Bilibili, a lot of people took that quite negatively as well. A lot of people in chat are pointing out, PTSD, right? So again, that is a pretty reasonable response, because this was a massive catastrophe, which would understandably be lingering in the minds of a lot of Western audiences going forward from that point. So in addition to that, people would also be, by default, really skeptical of anything that comes out of China, especially the owner, the CEO of this Metashon, this Chinese MCN that has absolutely zero information available to the public, right? And in a post made by another post made by Lion Maru Fan, I think 5 days after the previous one that we talked about, Metashon owner CEO mocks Hollow ID and English members who refused Bilibili as obscure and unknown. I don't even know who they are. Who is this even to refuse? Claims Hachima really wants to return to Bilibili and apologize to Chinese fans. Fubuki most eager. Now, from what I could see, as was listed in the information in this post, Metashon CEO and NOA Talent CEO are different people. Metashon CEO is a bit of a brand risk in and of himself, because again, a lot of people find him to be, for want of a better term, an ass. However, again, because of that separation of Noah and Metashon, because Noah is supposed to function as the English-facing branch, I suppose, of Metashon, there is a degree of separation where I feel like it is safe to say that there isn't too much, how do I put this, influence from one to the other. I don't think there is a direct correlation between how the CEO of Metashon acts and how He Xiaotong acts. They do seem to be separate people that have their own ways of running their companies, their own attitudes, because I don't think He Xiaotong has been nearly as inflammatory as this in his public communications. However, again, it is worth noting that this is something that people are thinking about when you are trying to solicit them to become your audience. Clan, thank you for the 50. Signing off, getting very late in Denmark. Okay. Good evening to you, lad. So yeah. The next problem, right? Because we've already established that HoloLive, as the bigger agency, has already sort of soured the well, poisoned the well, salted the soil, set up an environment where people are automatically braced against anything China-related. The next thing is what I would term the Nijisanji inoculation effect, right? Because again, the thing that I always reiterate is that communication is contextual. Your message is not interpreted in a vacuum. It will be held up, understood, interpreted in reference to everything else that has occurred both around it and prior to it. And this was a massive canon event in the VTubing industry earlier on this year that has set the tone for a lot of different audiences and a lot of different corpos. Essentially, what I mean by this is that the whole Nijisanji Selen debacle, and again, this is something that I've talked about many other times, it's to the point where it might be regarded as ad nauseum at this point. The problem is, this was such a disaster. This was so, cataclysmic for corporate PR that Nijisanji became, and still is, basically the poster child for a black company. However, because of the fact that this was so disastrous, because of the fact that so many audiences simultaneously became aware of this situation, the intricacies of it, what exactly happened during it, people were now oversensitive, or they were perhaps preemptive when it comes to diagnosing the same sort of traits in other companies. The human brain is frighteningly good at spotting patterns, and as a result of that, we are also worryingly good at preempting things based on the tiniest, almost imperceptible signs that they might be similar to something we've experienced in the past. So, as a result of the Nijisanji inoculation effect, we got black company hypersensitivity, where everyone in the West became hyper aware of the different traits that characterize how black companies might be operating. And so when we see any of these traits in another company, we are going to be preemptively calling them as being referring to them as being a black company. And these traits are a lack of transparency, a lack of professionalism, the use of public humiliation as a termination tactic. Now, this one's important. Again, this will come into play later. Out of touch upper management and incompetent middle management. Talent exploitation, enabling of bad actors. All of these traits were things that were, laid out for the public to see in a messy, unorganized manner when Nijisanji had their debacle months ago at this point, and these are still things that are fresh in the minds of the Western audience. So, again, if your organization, if your corporation exhibits any of these traits, if people don't know about you, if people don't trust you, any one of these would be enough to trip off audiences to oppose your expansion instead of welcome it. So, the next thing that I want to talk about is the impact of technology on this expansion. Because, like I keep saying, the medium is the message. What you use to communicate will end up shaping the things you say. And the main thing here is that Noa was attempting to pivot from using Bilibili as their main medium, their main platform, to using a combination of Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. Now, Twitter is especially important in this particular situation because most of the awareness that people have on Noa come from Reddit, the boards, or Twitter. And I would argue mostly Twitter. And the problem is, again, when you use Twitter as the platform, you have to play by the rules of engagement set by that platform. And in terms of the practices that the platform encourages, right? I want to tell you guys about a phenomenon by the name of live streaming. Not live streaming, life streaming. And it was a term that was invented by a media scholar by the name of A.E. Marwick. And she defines it as the ongoing sharing of personal information to a networked audience, the creation of a digital portrait of one's actions and thoughts. Essentially, what this term meant was that when you use a social media app, like, for example, Twitter, when you make various tweets giving out little bits of information about yourself, your life, your identity, people will end up consuming these individual bits of identity and assembling them together to get something that resembles what and who you are, right? And again, this picture may not be a one-to-one. In fact, I can almost guarantee it won't be a one-to-one to who you actually are in real life. But this is what people see in their minds when they consume all of the content that you put onto this platform. Now, the problem is, when you put your information onto that platform, when people interact with that information, the way in which people interact with it will set up a bunch of different social norms, rules, etc., forms of engagement, right? And these forms of engagement come with certain benefits and certain disadvantages. One of the advantages of live streaming on a social platform is the concept of creating accountability. Now, again, I kind of dislike the word accountability because it's been so overused, it's become meaningless at this point. It's usually used as a blunt force instrument to beat other people over the head with. But in this particular case, right, according to A.E. Marwick, personal informatics enthusiasts use technology to record and monitor personal data, often trusting the internet to broadcast weight loss or health progress. For many, knowing that people were watching their data streams created a sense of obligation to an audience, much the same way that groups such as Weight Watchers or Alcoholics Anonymous use peer accountability to help members maintain desired behaviors. Similar principles applied to social obligations. Actions like wishing people happy birthday, attending events, were done in view of others, encouraging people to hew into social norms. Essentially, what that meant was when you do things publicly, and everything on a social platform is public, there is this idea that you are creating accountability for yourself in your actions, in your words, in your expressed thoughts and feelings by performing them in front of peers, right? Essentially, what would happen is that when you do these things publicly, you would end up creating and adhering to a set of social norms, right? A set of norms that are set by the population, the user base of that platform. However, the disadvantage of this is that it facilitates things like drama. The presence of networked audiences not only encourages self-conscious performance of identity, it enables others to weigh in on social norm violations. While audience involvement can be seen as promoting accountability, social media also amplifies the amount of drama and conflict as other people besides the original two players become involved in the argument, chiming in as much as gossip blog readers weighing in on the latest celebrity divorce or feud. See, again, here's the problem, because the moment you set up an environment where all of your interactions are, designed to adhere to a set of communally agreed upon social norms, that community becomes involved in enforcing those norms as well. This is why when you use Twitter to have a private, well, not private, but at least a one-on-one discussion or argument with someone, it becomes a shit-flinging contest, because everyone else comes in as well. In addition to that, anything on Twitter becomes performative by virtue of the fact that it is publicly performed. People know that it is publicly performed because Twitter gives you metrics to see how people are engaging with your post, to see how many people have seen and or engaged with your post. And this is often used by the Twitter user base as a measure of who is more right, or at least who is more agreeable. This is why ratioing is a thing. So, we've established that when you use a platform, that platform will have its own set of social norms, right? And the thing is, when it comes to, obeying those social norms, when you violate them, that can create a bit of a disaster for yourself, especially if you're a corporation that's looking to use this as a platform to market yourself on. So, I stated before that your communication is shaped by your medium. But what is the medium shaped by? And the answer to that is the user base, the cultural backgrounds, the social attitudes, the social values of the user base that sustains it, and the people who made it. And when it comes to Twitter, Twitter is admittedly a very Western platform. It has a very Western user base. It has very Western concerns that become quite popular among the user base. And I understand and I acknowledge that America is not the entirety of the West. But America has been, in my opinion, unduly influential on defining what it means to be in the West. So, the problem is, America has a very different cultural value, or very different set of cultural values to China. I've already talked about how, one of the values that isn't shared between the two is the value of diversity. America has a very big concern about that, more so than pretty much any country in the East. However, another cultural value that America really emphasizes is the concept of openness, the idea that you should be forthcoming with information about yourself. Now, this is due to a variety of factors, right? Not only, and again, in no small part, this is a value that has been shaped by the tech companies that have over the last decade, come to define so much of how people see the world and see each other. Right? And again, these mediums are built to shape the way you see society. And these mediums are designed with the premise that more openness is always a good thing, right? But anyways, America glorifies openness. And this is a value that is defined on these platforms. Twitter wants you to see it as a way of sharing personal information, almost acting like your own personal diary or blog, or somewhere for you to say something quirky that you wouldn't include as part of your usual content, right? It's designed to look like a personal thing. And the problem is, that is how a lot of the user base sees stuff as well. And while they might not expect people to air private information all the time on Twitter, What that does mean, what the integrity of openness to this platform means, is that it will manifest in terms of different expectations for behavior depending on whether the entity using that platform is a corporation or an individual person. When it comes to individual people, expecting openness manifests as a desire for honesty and authenticity, right? When individual creators communicate to their audiences on Twitter, their audiences expect that, one, obviously, they're not going to be lying to them, because we are human, we don't like being lied to. This is a very established social thing, right? This is a social norm that you do not lie to another human being when you're genuinely trying to engage with them, have a conversation with them, establish a connection or relationship with them, etc., etc. The other thing, authenticity. This is a bit more murky, because authenticity is essentially the idea that what you see online is at least similar to what is behind the screen in real life, right? And again, this is based on human interaction, except this is a warped version of how people interact in real life, right? Because when we see another human being in front of us, when we speak to another human being in front of us, we see exactly what we get, right? We can observe a litany of different things, right? Their body language, how they're speaking, right? Their tone of voice, the facial expressions that they're making. We have a lot of information that goes towards giving us an idea of who they are, aside from the things that are coming out of their mouth. However, when you move that interaction online, you lose that ability to connect with all of those traits that we have evolved to take into account when we interact with someone. And instead, what replaces that is now a hope, an expectation that what we see through someone's words, through someone's communications, is again going to give us as accurate a representation of what they're like in real life as things like body language, facial expression, tone of voice would had we interacted with them IRL. So, on the flip side, when you are interacting with a corporation, the way that an expectation for openness manifests is a desire for transparency and consistency. Corporations are not human. They are not human entities. They are not seen as human entities. They should not be seen as human entities. And as a result of that, we want to see how they work. We want to know how they operate internally. We want to make sure that we're not being lied to by this scary, large organization, right? And again, that's a very understandable thing. And as well as wanting to know what is going on the inside, right? We also want to understand, we also want the assurance that they are going to be consistent in their words and actions, that what they say, what they promise, they will deliver. Now, part of that is to do with the fact that corporations are a business, and we, as consumers, we have a stake in making sure that they follow through on their promises, right? You don't want to get ripped off, you don't want to get scammed. So, transparency and consistency are both very understandable expectations, values that we attach to corporate communication on social platforms. Because again, this is the corporate version of a social expectation that we would associate with a social interaction. Except, instead of communicating with another person, we're communicating with a corporation. And instead of communicating face-to-face, we are communicating via an online platform. Now, I want you to understand that when it comes to both of these sets of values, right? Consistency, authenticity, honesty, transparency, it's by no means exclusive, right? Ideally, when we communicate with online creators, we would get transparency and consistency as well, right? But we don't tend to expect that as much. These two only tend to become issues when the creator has done something wrong, right? But when we just interact with them on a day-to-day basis, we only expect these two things. The thing is, right, when you are communicating on behalf of an organization as an individual person, that's when things get tricky. Because instead of just expecting this, people start expecting this as well. Because not only are you an individual person trying to talk to them, you are an individual person representing a corporation. This is why in any competently run corporation, they will know to make the statements for themselves using their corporate accounts, and if necessary, through a designated spokesperson who is okay with being seen as a corporation more than as a person, right? So, with all of that in mind, right, where did these disasters all start from? On the 21st of July, 2024, a user by the name of Awawa Aishi Cyber Doggo, or Awawa Aishi VT, posted the following. I am tired of feeling scared. I'm sick of being silenced. I originally didn't want to go public with this, but seeing as there's been so many other victims to Serge VT's manipulative behaviors and lies, I want to give my voice from what I went through. Document attached. Serge VT is a manipulator, and the implicated party is the very same Serge VT with over 100k, specifically 108k subscribers on YouTube. That was part of NOA Talent's core roster. Now, when you hear the words small indie VTuber on Twitter with a Google Doc, a lot of you may roll your eyes. And, to be honest, I understand that reaction. That particular demographic is infamous for practices, unpleasant behaviors like shit-flinging, shit-stirring, clout-chasing, backstabbing, and a whole manner of other unpleasantness that is associated with drama farming and performative activism, performative interactions that fall in line with what Twitter encourages as a platform by design. However, I don't think that's what this was. In this particular case, right? Well, it would probably be better to just go through some of the main contents of the document. And to give you a basic summary, essentially, Aishi was the ex-partner of Serge. And during the course of the relationship, Serge had been unfaithful. He had been cheating with another VTuber by the name of Ayaka. And both of these VTubers were addressed in the document, right? And again, when we go into the TLDR summary that Aishi gave, bear in mind this whole document is 46 pages. I did read all 46. But for the purposes of this stream, right, we'll go with the TLDR. First, Serge used his sexuality as an excuse for being unfaithful, manipulated her friends into believing their feelings towards him hurting me were invalid, as well as their experiences with him. So Serge twisted the story, claiming I didn't support his sexuality when I did, and lied about being a manipulator, gaslit me and others to make everyone feel as if I was in the wrong, tried gaslighting or guilt-tripping me with his, quote, apology, disrespecting boundaries, calling her a manipulator for simply communicating her boundaries and feelings, telling people behind her back that she was a manipulator towards him, constantly lying and hiding things before and after their relationship, and, to top it all off, Ayako, the other party, tried guilt-tripping her as well. So, again, yeah, a few people in chat saying that escalated quickly. Yeah, exactly. So again, if you just looked at the first part of it, where she did talk about, and again, this was, from what I gathered from reading the document, a mostly online relationship, right? Online relationships, again, when you hear about these kinds of things happening, a lot of people might instinctively like disconnect, dissociate. Understandably so, because at this point, I would argue that online relationships are in a bit of a buyer beware type status. But, you know, that part of the document, that part of the story, I understand people dissociating from. But it wasn't just that, right? It wasn't just a matter of two people getting into an online relationship, one of them cheating, and then the two of them breaking up and making the mistake of trying to become friends afterwards. Like, you know, it's a mistake that a lot of people make. It's a mistake that we've heard of a million times before, and we will hear about a million times more. However, what is really concerning is the part that comes afterwards, right? Because this was someone, Serge VT, was someone who was not only an unsavory individual by all accounts, but this was someone who was actively trying to sabotage the career, friendships of this person, of Aishi, right? And the thing about being a VTuber, especially being an indie VTuber, Actually, you know what? Scratch that. This is a thing that applies to all creators, but especially VTubers in the indie scene. Your friends are more often than not also your co-workers, and vice versa. Now, what that means is that your financial viability, your potential future career, your ability to sustain your hobby, passion, hopefully career, is directly tied to your sociability. And what Serge had done, and this is confirmed in his following apology in response to this document, was attempt to spread rumors about someone with the intention of isolating them from their close friends, from their co-workers. And again, I understand being a little dissociated from the whole online relationship going bad thing. But this is a legitimate problem that plagues the VTuber industry. Not even just among small indies, but larger indies, sometimes even corporate environments when they spiral out of control as well. Creating rumors, spreading lies, manipulating people to isolate someone socially is never just about, the friend group. It is always something that has possible implications for their career going forward. So, in response to this particular document, Serge would change his name on Twitter to inactive and post an apology, right? For those that read this concerns, great start. Thank you for taking the time to read. For those that this concerns, I'm illiterate. Thank you for taking the time to read. I would like to publicly apologize for my continuous behavior, which has affected very close friends. I ask you to please read the whole statement, and I respect your decision after reading. Thank you. I was friends with many people who hurt others and did wrongful actions. I reflect on my decisions to enable these people. I am sorry for enabling the aggressors and for not supporting the victims immediately. My biggest issue is that I've been enabling those around me, and I give people second chances too easily, which has repeatedly bitten me in the ass hard. This leads to me also manipulating others and causing harm. I sincerely and profusely apologize to Saphiria VT, Arborn VT, Pumpkin, 12 VT, Aishi, TLDR Soma, and anybody else that I have hurt, backstabbed, or pushed away due to my various actions and mistakes. Please understand, these are the individuals that I know of that I have repeatedly hurt. If you are someone that I've hurt and you're not listed above, please come to me directly so that I can apologize to you too, if you are comfortable. Yeah, as a lot of people are pointing out in chat, this doesn't really come across as very genuine. It does come across as PR edited at best. Or sorry, I shouldn't say PR edited. With PR as the foremost focus first, rather than, and ukulele at worst. But again, one of the core problems with this apology is that it doesn't answer the expectations that people come to, other individuals with on this platform. It doesn't come across as authentic. It doesn't come across as honest, right? It's really vague and unspecific about what exactly he's apologizing for. And he doesn't even really say that he's been guilty of manipulating people so much as he says, I manipulated people because I was deceived myself, right? I do not expect forgiveness, nor do I expect retribution. This is purely for accountability, which was greatly overdue. I apologize for hurting those around me, manipulating others, and enabling dangerous people. I understand this behavior is problematic and will be taking a hiatus to go to therapy. That's truly the creator classic, right? You come out with a public apology and you say you're taking a hiatus so you can go to therapy. Get the help I need and better myself so that these situations won't ever happen again. To those who still want to support me, I ask you to go after the victims. I ask you not to go after the victims, or anybody I have hurt. These actions were my fault and I take full responsibility. By the way, this is why I'm approaching this from the angle that, all the things in the document were true. Aside from the fact that, Aishi did give screenshots, actual evidence, right? Serge doesn't deny any of those things. And he, again, in his words, takes full responsibility for all of the accusations leveled against him. For those who are going after anybody associated with me, please understand it's not their fault either, as for all my actions were my own. I have manipulated and used bodyguards to protect myself. They don't deserve my responsibility. Now, as to who he means when he says anybody associated with me, this will become clear in a second. Thank you for taking your time to read this statement. Once again, I will be taking a hiatus and leaving the VTuber community to go get the help I need so that I never repeat these mistakes again. So, I want you to remember that Serge has stated multiple times in this apology that he is going to be on hiatus, that he plans to leave the VTuber community, and that he is going to get help and therapy. These will all ring very hollow later on in this stream. So, on the same day, coincidentally, Quinn, the audition manager, posted the following. As of July 21st, 2024, Quinn will be dismissing all personal talents and closing her personal management services. This renders all contracts immediately void. Quinn agrees to relinquish her right to salary for the services rendered with the posting of this statement. This statement does not prevent Quinn from reopening personal management services in the future, although she will be highly selective and do thorough evaluations into her future clientele. And she also reposted Aishi's Google Doc. So, few important things to note here. 1, this was pinned and posted to Quinn's personal account. 2, despite the fact, Quinn refers to herself in the third person. Now, again, Quinn is a native English speaker, so this seems like a choice that is made for either legal reasons or because, and again, this is purely speculation, but it does come across this way, it might not have been written by her. It doesn't read as if it's written by her because she refers to herself in the third person. But again, it's entirely possible that this is just, her referring to herself in the third person for legal reasons, because Quinn is the name that she uses for her management services. The third thing that I want to point out is that she states that she is going to be purging the personal talents under her care for her personal management services. Now, assuming that, with both of these bits of information put together, right, the fact that she has let go of the talents that were previously under her, under her personal management, and the fact that she reposted Aishi's document, we can conclude that Serge was one of the talents that was previously managed by Quinn. But also, on top of that, that Quinn was not managing him as part of NOA, that he was managed under her in accordance with her own personal management services. And this is an important distinction to make, because again, when it comes to NOA, she acts as the audition manager, not the talent manager. That is a separate role. So what I assume happened here is that Quinn was responsible for onboarding an unknown amount of talents, an unknown number of talents, one of whom was Serge, and while they were in the company, she was managing them on the side, outside of NOA, personally. And with the finding of these, particular, infractions by Serge, she had decided to let him go, that she disagreed with his actions, and that she did not want to continue being his manager behind the scenes. Hence why she said she relinquished her right to salary for severing that service with Serge, and also that it doesn't stop her from reopening personal management services in the future. And she, while promising to be more selective with who she takes on. Tomahawk PWPT, thank you for the 5. That South Park, we're sorry, but with the company comes to mind when reading that apology. Yeah, for sure. Again, it reeks of just being like, a checklist ticking exercise rather than a genuine expression of regret. Although, again, we're going to see why in a second. So, in response to this entire event, right, Quinn wasn't the only one that had something to say, because NOA Talent themselves would post the following message a day later. As a result of amicable discussion between Serge VT and management, it is determined that cooperation between Serge VT and NOA Talent should be ended due to personal reasons. With agreement from the talent, we have decided termination of the contract with him. So, again, this is pretty cut and dried. Honestly, I would applaud NOA Talent for doing this, because by all means, from all sources, it really does seem like they just took on a ticking time bomb, PR-wise, by accepting this talent onto their roster. And to be completely honest, I don't think someone who has the tendency to try and socially isolate someone who they were previously in a relationship with purely because they disagreed with them, purely because they victimized them in the past, I don't think that kind of person belongs in a corporate environment, right? And again, remember, I'm saying this because it is self-admitted, right? It's not just allegations when you yourself as a person confirm those allegations. So anyways, so this was pretty fine and dandy, right? It was consensual, Serge agreed to it, and it was a public announcement that was pretty clear, cut and dry. Serge was being terminated because personal reasons, right? And had this ended here, that would have been fine. Except 2 days later, in the early hours of the morning, a VTuber by the name of Serge VT would make the following tweet. Fake graduating a talent and rebranding is a next level of shitty. Less than an hour later, Serge VT, if you would remember, Serge was one of the names mentioned in Serge's, quote, apology post, stated, "Did you really think that people wouldn't find out? The fucking audacity to up and rebrand after all that you did. Also, shame on you at NOA Talent for continuing to support someone who hurt so many people and for hiding them by rebranding after a fake-ass graduation." And attached to it, well, this was quote tweeting Noah's original termination notice, and attached were 2 images. The first was a YouTube profile by the name of Shimizu Shiroi. Interesting thing about Shimizu Shiroi, 108k subscribers. If you will remember, the other person who had 108k subscribers was Serge VT, and when you clicked on the bio, expanded all the links, it would take you to a Shimizu Shiroi TikTok page, a Shimizu Shiroi Bilibili page, and, hey presto, the YouTube link was at Serge VT. And when you go onto Shimizu Shiroi's Bilibili account, you get an affiliate email address, shimizushiroi@noatalent.com. On top of that, right? No, so okay, basically, again, my mind is breaking down trying to comprehend how this happened, right? Actually, give me a second to blow my nose. we had a good run. We got around an hour in before the allergy started hitting. So, if this was all there was, right, this would have been scummy, right? This would have been a guy who, instead of going on hiatus to get help and get therapy, this is someone who basically immediately tried to rebrand and, just move past the entire thing. However, this would have been bad, but it would have been fine had there been no affiliation between NOA Talent and Shimizu Shiroi. Because now, NOA Talent had been roped back in because, again, they're affiliated with this person. They're still affiliated with this person. And, okay, sure. Let's say, for example, NOA Talent's Shimizu Shiroi email, let's be really charitable and say that, okay, just because he has that address in his Bilibili bio doesn't mean that he's actually affiliated with NOA Talent. Anyone can put anything in their bio, etc., right? However, on the same day, if you go over to NOA Talent's YouTube page, you could see that there had been some reshuffling happening on the page. Yet again. This time, Noro, the previous talent that was part of their core roster, had been shifted over to the Raven project, and there was another talent next to them, Shimizu Shiroi. Now, I could accept maybe the possibility that, the email address was included by accident. But assuming that this screenshot is true, and I do think that this is true, that doesn't explain why Shimizu Shiroi is on the NOA Talent page. Because, one, the Raven project did not include Noro before, and two, Shimizu Shiroi was not on the YouTube page before either. And when I'm, in presenting this to you guys, I want to give a specific shout out to a user by the name of BB on TVA, who compiled a lot of these screenshots that I'm now showing you guys. And again, had it not been for them, even though I saw the posts, I didn't screenshot them fast enough before they were either deleted, before the web pages were reshuffled, or before people put their profiles on private. So, the reason why I show you guys these things is because there is now a pattern of behavior being displayed here. A pattern of incompetence. Someone at NOA is reshuffling routinely their social medias, their web pages, and each time, seemingly, it has been a leak of some sort, right? And especially, and again, you need to understand that when it comes to the way that this is contextualized, right, people, when they view this, they're not going to think of it as just a mistake. They're going to think of it as a leak, because that was the precedent that NOA had set for themselves when they leaked that Sayu was joining, or at least planning on joining. So, because of that, NOA had now put themselves into a position where they looked like they really were going to and I say looked like as a very charitable extension, they looked like they were going to rebrand and re-debut a talent that had just been outed for some pretty despicable behavior. So, in response, Aishi would be commenting on this entire spiral of events as well. And this is where shit really started hitting the fan. Serge, you really had the audacity to give us an, quote, apology video privately, claiming you'll be leaving the VTubing space and go to therapy and take accountability. You're being rebranded, clear as day. They lied about terminating you, and don't play fake supporter with me, Quinn. So, two things here. One, addressing the fact that Serge was very obviously going through a rebrand rather than, again, as he stated, going to therapy. And two, she specifically calls out Quinn for what she views as a disingenuous display of support. One of the screenshots she provided was a Discord conversation in a group chat between her, Sephiria, Arbon VT, and Zoro VT, if I'm reading that correctly, where all of them had been put into a group chat with Quinn and sent a video, a recording from Serge, where presumably at Quinn's direction, he had apologized to all of them. And in any other circumstances, this might have been an applaudable move, right? Giving the people who were affected by the situation a sense of closure, that things were finally being dealt with, justice was being served, and that the guilty party was finally, acknowledging their wrongdoing. Except now all of it rings hollow because of this. So, things would only get worse when Quinn would begin responding. And the thing is, she didn't respond in one statement. She started trying to reply to all of the individual people who were bringing attention to this situation. Now, Quinn states, 4 days ago, Serge wiped all his content. 3 days ago, I stopped being his personal manager and lost all access to his accounts. 2 days ago, he was terminated by Noa. He's not rebranding or joining, he just didn't remove his stuff from his account. Please don't drag Noa with him. Now, this part, he just didn't remove his stuff from his account. This is a statement that will become problematic in a second. In response to this, the other VTubers that had spoken out about this situation started replying. One of them, Safiria, stated, "Not his ex-manager contacting me, asking me to take down my post. I will do no such thing. Don't contact me again." Now this is a really bad sign, because what it means is that Quinn had been reaching out privately to these people making these posts, asking them to take them down. And when it comes to addressing these kinds of concerns in the public eye, you should never, ever attempt to silence the critics. Just address what they're saying. Don't try to cut them off. It's never a good look. This is exactly the trap that Niji blundered into by serving a cease and desist to, what was her name again? I'm drawing a blank. Anyways. But yeah, this to Raziel, yeah, exactly. Yeah. This was exactly the blunder that Niji had made by serving a cease and desist to Raziel. And now, this was Noa making the exact same mistake by trying to silence Zephyria. And on top of that, in Aishi's replies, Quinn would be trying to put out the fire as well. Aishi stated, "Make it clear to everyone that he's not coming back, but being rebranded, and, that he's not coming back rebranded with you guys." And Quinn states, "I'm trying to discuss how to make a public statement, but it's hard when more and more people keep doing their individual posts. The fire is spreading, and I'm trying to handle it, but I have to get approval from higher ups for anything I do, even if I think we should act now." Now this throws up a few red flags for the way that Noah's upper management is functioning. For starters, it means that there is, despite only listing 3 staff members on their public webpage, there is a bureaucracy to get through. Either that, or their upper management is just lethargic, apathetic, and slow to move. But Aishi then replies, "I know with 100% facts you guys were gonna. It's not my problem you lied. This is simply pointing out what is there, and don't make it seem like he was, quote, updating his stuff. It makes 0 sense to rebrand when he claims he was leaving. From here, leave me alone." And then Quinn states, he changed his name because that was the name he wanted to use before he became Geometry-Surge. His accounts are his to own and keep, and what he does with them isn't Noah's job per our contract. We were 100% not going to rebrand him. He dug his own grave. Now, to be very charitable, there is a possibility that Quinn is trying to be authentic in how she is expressing her feelings towards the situation and her feelings towards Serge as a talent. Because I would assume, given that Quinn is being honest, she does feel personal distaste for Serge. She makes that quite clear by stating he dug his own grave. However, in this case, that would imply that there is some sort of disconnect between Quinn, as middle management, and the upper management at NOA. Because, again, if upper management was just as revolted by this particular use of their branding by Serge as Quinn seems to be here, they would probably be taking this situation a lot more seriously and coming out with a statement a lot faster. It doesn't take a lot of time to simply say that one of our ex-talents is using our name without our approval. We are going to get him to remove that. And the fact that that hasn't been so forthcoming, that Quinn has to go through an entire process to get approval from them and come up with a public statement, is, to say the least, quite concerning. Another user by the name of Kiwi then pointed out, that doesn't change anything though. If it isn't a new NOA talent, it should have been known, if it isn't new, NOA Talent should have known about the account, especially since he's using NOA Talent's email for it when it's an old account. I'm glad NOA Talent is taking care of it, but that being pointed out justifies the backlash, to which Quinn would then reply, "We knew about the account, but we don't confiscate accounts at NOA." Now again, it's worth pointing out, I don't think this was a separate account. This was the exact same account that Serge was using, that Serge had listed up on NOA Talent's roster beforehand, but just changed, with the name changed. We knew about the account, but we don't confiscate accounts at NOA. It is up to the talent to maintain their profile. Bilibili accounts specifically are bound to your ID card and phone number and require verification every time you log in. By the way, this entire situation has given me a new appreciation for why Sakuna seems to be so bent on acquiring the IPs to any talents he takes on. Because, well, I mean, this is a quite clear example of how badly things can go if you are not in control of an account that you are terminating. Then, Quinn states, "I have literally never lied to you. You can even check the dates of everything. It all checks out. Pinning the guilty is fine, but don't drag innocent parties into this, please." And the problem that I have with this particular statement is that it is addressing the wrong people. Because the people pinning NOA to Serge are not the ones who are guilty of that association. Serge himself is the one who created this entire problem. Because Serge went on to not only rebrand immediately after stating that he was going to be leaving from the space, but also he rebranded while attaching NOA Talent to his new profile. So, moving on. Quinn then attempts to give more explanations as to why Shimizu Shiroi is Shimizu Shiroi at noatalent.com. She states, "It was going to become his email," and by his email and it, she is referring to Shimizu Shiroi at noatalent.com, "if he ever debuted, and as you know, Serge jumped the gun early on a lot of things." There is a trend going on here with jumping the gun on a lot of things, and it's not only Serge that's been doing that, NOA Talent has been doing that as well. A lot of stuff got leaked that will never see the light of day, but the email never went live because, well, he got terminated. And then Jury, another VTuber, comes into the replies asking, if that's the case, he's literally screwing you guys over by leaving all the company details. And then Quinn says, exactly, but we can't change the past. Check the accounts, they should be gone now. And then in response to a question about, why Shimizu Shiroi at noatalent.com exists, she states, "I can answer that. The name was his old name before ever becoming Geometry-Surge. We don't confiscate channels. They were all his own hard work previously. He wiped them himself before terminating." And another VTuber states, "Thank you for clarifying, Quinn. I'm glad to hear that. I didn't know he had an old name from before. I hope this clears up everyone's inquiries. I hope this clears up as people's inquiries get answered." However, There was yet another inconsistency in the way that the explanations for Shimizu Shiroi at NOATalent.com were being explained, because in a private Discord message, a user by the name of Tazatal would ask, "Hey Quinn, wanted to reach out to you because I had some concerns about Noah that I was confused about. Is there a reason why Serge is still in the Discord and has his specific roles, despite severing the relationship between Noah and him? There is also the thing of him rebranding with a NOA Talent email." To which Quinn replies, he shouldn't be in the Discord anymore? I checked the list and there's no Serge. You can try to email that NOA Talent email and see if it leads to anything. It is fake. Your message wasn't delivered to Shimizu Shiroi at NOATalent.com when, this was the result of someone actually trying to email that address. And again, indeed, this is an inactive account. However, it being fake and it being an address that he was going to debut with do not match. They are not the same thing, right? And they do not sound like the same thing, which is more important. The other thing that I want to point out is that even though, apparently, Shimizu Shiroi at NOATalent.com was supposed to be the email that Serge was going to use if he ever debuted, Serge had his own unique at NOA Talent email. Because if you go over to his bio before he deleted everything, it states very clearly, Serge at NOATalent.com, which, again, kind of invalidates your claim that Shimizu Shiroi at NOATalent.com was planned for the debut, because Serge did debut with his own unique email address that was associated with NOATalent.com. So, again, all of this is really confusing. It's been a long trek of a whole, bunch of different screenshots, storylines, etc. So, I'm going to give you guys a quick recap, right? Shimizu Shiroi and Serge VT are the same person. They're even the same channel. NOA Talent terminated Serge VT before removing their affiliation from all of his socials. This is why I stated before, Serge isn't the only one jumping the gun on decisions and announcements. Noah has been doing it as well. Shimizu Shiroi's Billy bio contained a NOA Talent affiliate email, despite the fact that Serge was never supposed to debut with that name under Noah. Again, Shimizu Shiroi is not someone who was supposed to debut under NOA Talent, because he was supposed to debut under the name Serge VT. However, in spite of that fact, both Serge and Shimizu Shiroi both had unique NOA Talent emails in their respective bios. This is the part that invalidates what Quinn was saying about the fact that it is, an email that he was planning to debut with. Because if it was an email that he was planning to debut with, why would they give him two? And why would they not get rid of the one that he wasn't going to be using when he ended up debuting under Serge VT? Quinn has stated that Shimizu Shiroi at NOATalent.com was, quote, going to become Serge's email if he ever debuted, and that he jumped the gun. However, she also states that Shimizu Shiroi at NOATalent.com is a, quote, fake and or inactive email address that Serge VT, for unknown reasons, left in Shimizu Shiroi's Billy bio even after his termination from NOA Talent. So, all round, a really messy situation. Best case scenario, Noah didn't do their due diligence when terminating a problematic talent, and in doing so allowed themselves to be roped back into the shitstorm that had emerged around that talent's unsavory decision to rebrand himself almost immediately after claiming to leave the space and, quote, take accountability, quote, better himself, etc., etc. And on top of that, right, worst case scenario, they actually were planning on rebranding, re-debuting him, and deceiving audiences on Twitter, in their Discord, etc., etc. And I have to say, the second possibility, part of the reason why the second possibility has to be taken seriously is because the first explanation does not explain why Shimizu Shiroi appeared on their YouTube page after Serge was supposedly terminated. And two, well, to put it simply, both of the people who were, in upper management listed in the NOA Talent webpage as, being their founders, right? They're not inexperienced people. Sure, NOA Talent is new, but I'm assuming that He Xiaotong has worked with VTubers before, which means that surely he is no stranger to termination protocols, and this is not a mistake that an experienced leadership would make, which is, again, why this possibility is worth taking seriously. And even if you say that maybe, again, Shimizu Shiroi, technically speaking, since it's just a renamed version of Serge's, the same Serge channel, maybe it wasn't added to the NOA Talent page, but maybe it was just accidentally reshuffled when Noro's page was also accidentally reshuffled. But it's not a great look when you terminate a talent before removing all of their stuff from all of your stuff. So, to go on. A few hours later, NOA Talent would finally make a statement, but it wasn't going to be in the form of, your black text on white background type statement. This was just a tweet, a quote tweet in response to their own prior termination notice. Regarding all false information about the termination announcement with Serge VT. NOA management will not cooperate with Serge VT in any activities, including rebranding or rejoining. Access to all business-related accounts and emails is still under the process of withdrawing. And this is what irks me about this entire situation. It could have been so easily avoided if NOA had simply stated in their original announcement that the process of removing all of the socials was going to take time. But, again, even better would be if they had just removed all of their affiliation links from Serge's profile before announcing that they were terminating him. And again, this is going with the best case, most charitable assumption that they didn't actually plan on rebranding him. And then Quinn states in a quote tweet to that tweet, "Everything should be updated now. For those who don't believe, you can try the email. It doesn't exist." And then Aishi says, "'Cause y'all inactivated it." And Quinn replies, "Of course it's inactive. Why would we have an email for a talent we'll never debut?" So, here's the thing. And this is a very classic example of why I don't believe Quinn actually has PR training. Even though she has, for some reason, been given the role of being NOA Talent's PR representative. This is a very classic example of addressing the wrong part of what someone is saying, right? When you take that statement from Aishi, because y'all inactivated it, there are two accusations that are being leveled here. The one that Quinn actually addresses is the accusation that the address is now inactive. And again, this is something that she explicitly states, albeit in a bit of a snarky way. However, the more important accusation is y'all, because this implies that NOA Talent were the ones in charge of that email from the start. And unfortunately, despite the fact that Quinn addressed this part of the statement, she didn't address this one. And between the two, I would argue that it's way more important that you address this than it is to address this. Throughout this entire thing, Quinn has been making public statements as well in now deleted posts that have been attempting to express her frustration at the lethargic pace at which upper management has been moving to address this situation. Again, I don't have an explanation for why upper management was so slow to respond to this. It really shouldn't have taken that long, but in any case, again, when you look at her statements, you can very obviously tell that she's getting increasingly agitated, right? I'm trying to discuss how to make a public statement, but it's hard when more and more people keep doing their individual posts. The fire is spreading. And again, she views this as a spreading fire that she needs to stomp out herself on her own individually. And that is usually a sign that someone is operating in a way that is unsupported, or at least not given sufficient support by their superiors. And you can kind of see that happening where she states in another post, every decision I want to do has to be approved by a higher board of managers. So again, Quinn, as the audition manager, as the manager that is now been given the job, the admittedly unenviable job of trying to act as NOA Talent's PR representative, has managers of her own. And she needs to talk to a higher board. This board, by the way, is not present on any of NOA Talent's socials. It's not present on their website, because again, their website only lists 3 staff members. But anyways, these managers need to be consulted with before a public statement can be made, even before she can say anything herself. I can't do everything instantly, and we had some long talks about everything before it happened. I wanted to announce it sooner, but it is what it is. I have a rep to manage and a mess to clean up. And as people point out, I'm a reindeer. She is supposed to be a co-founder of NOA Talent. So the question then becomes, who is actually running NOA Talent? Because He Xiaotong is not a higher board of managers. He's just the CEO. And again, because of how slowly this response has been put together, because of how inconsistent the messaging has been, it has now become a matter of interest to know who the hell is running things behind the scenes, because they are not doing their job correctly. They are acting as a hindrance to proper response, proper communications, proper public relations. And this is, like I said before, symptomatic of an upper management that has grossly underestimated how difficult it might be to enter into a new market, to communicate with a new and foreign audience. So, another problem is that Quinn has essentially been left in a lose-lose situation. By the way, this is why you should never attempt to put your employees in a position where they feel like they have to become your PR representative. This is why you always need to designate one ahead of time instead of just leaving it to whichever employee cares the most to try and take up that role themselves. Because when someone attempts to address a situation that pertains to how your corporation is running, when they attempt to act as a representative of your corporation while also attempting to communicate in a human manner as an individual who is concerned personally about what is going on, you get stuck in a lose-lose situation because Quinn essentially has to choose between 2 things. Like I said before, people have different expectations for how a corporation approaches openness on social media and how an individual approaches openness on social media. When it comes to individuals, they expect authenticity. When it comes to corporations, they expect consistency. And Quinn was given the unenviable position of having to embody both a corporation and an individual at the same time, which means that she needed to give both consistency and authenticity in her responses. And that is very difficult to do if you are just one person replying to a bunch of disparate posts in an increasingly spiraling situation. She had to make one of 2 choices, and neither of which was a good one. Either she could go for prioritizing consistency but losing authenticity by just taking the same response and spamming Control-C, Control-V by pasting it in response to all of the other statements, all of the other threads, all of the other posts, all of the other people that were talking about the issue. Or she could choose to do what she did and try to respond to each one as a person, on an individual case-by-case basis. But the problem is, while that may come across as more authentic, it loses consistency. We've already pointed out how there are holes in what she has said about the justifications as to why Shimizu Shiroi at noatalent.com even exists. That's without even saying why it's attached to Serge's now rebranded social media. So, again, this is never a situation that you want to put your employees in. And this speaks to the idea that upper management has some very deep issues that make it so that they are completely unprepared to enter the Western market. Now, that being said, Quinn is not a perfect representative, and that will become very clear in a second, because the whole Serge debacle, was not the end of NOA Talent's controversies. If you remember, like I said before, they had 2 terminations over the course of just a few days. And that same day, the 24th of July, the second termination would be taking place. A user by the name of Lily, or Lily Nyap, who was previously the VTuber Noie under NOA Talent, made this tweet, which has since reached almost 1 million views. Today, I was unilaterally terminated from NOA Talent. The management at NOA told me that this would not be public knowledge, but it was brought to my attention that a public statement was released anyway. Therefore, I am making this short message out of caution. Yet again, we have more people coming to the public with the same story, that NOA Talent had somehow managed to jump the gun on announcing something that should have been kept private. Remember what I said before about hypersensitivity to black company behaviors? This was worryingly similar to using public humiliation as a termination tactic, and as can be understood given everything else that's happened this year, when people read this, their ears perked up, because again, this is a sign that something is going very wrong among NOA's management. Lily then replied to her own post with a follow-up. I wish everyone in NOA good luck in their ventures, and I just hope to move on from this without causing further issues on either side for management or talents. I will not be discussing this any further unless advised to. Thank you. Again, this is pretty professional, right? Pretty amicable. It gives room for this termination, even in spite of, even despite the public statement that was supposedly released before it should have been, or even instead of being kept under wraps. This gives room for some sort of civil discussion, a parting that doesn't injure either party too much. However, a little bit later, Lily would then state, "Wow, that was short. Since I'm being accused of delaying signing my termination contract, which I never received, I received my termination notice on the 22nd of July, made my decision on the same day, didn't get my contract, public statement was posted the day after, on the 23rd of July. I'm currently in discussion with various law firms, and should there be any escalation by the company, a full statement will be issued along with legal action. An in-depth statement will not be released at this time as we deemed it unnecessary. I agreed with being terminated and wanted to do it amicably to remain on friendly terms with management and everyone affiliated. I have never admitted to any guilt as implied in their statement. I was never even given a termination contract, which was promised but found out through the public statement posted on their Discord." This is a bit of a 180. In the span of a single tweet, Lily has gone from saying, look, I believe and I want to part amicably, to essentially going scorched earth, or threatening to go scorched earth in terms of the way that she parts with NOA Talent. Right? Something must have happened to create this drastic of a shift in tone between these two tweets. And, well, we will end up seeing what the statement in question was. First, the screenshots that she attached to that initial tweet where she stated that she was no longer interested in preserving civil relations with NOA Talent. The first was a screenshot of a conversation that she had presumably had with a manager at NOA Talent about the termination itself. So, the notice that was dated for the 22nd of July, this communication which was dated for the 22nd of July, which contains termination details that have been blanked out, and then the manager saying, once you've made your decision, I will draft our termination agreement accordingly. Out of respect for your reputation, we will not publicly announce our decision to terminate the contract. As mentioned above, parting may be beneficial for both parties, and we sincerely hope that whatever you choose to continue as a content creator or as an artist, you achieve remarkable success in your endeavors. Now, this sounds pretty sweet, right? You go your way, we go our way. We hope you the best in your future endeavors. But the more important thing is the fact that there is an explicit promise that this will not be made public, and that the termination agreement has not been drafted yet. This was just an outline of some of the things that may be put in the final document. Moving on. You had another conversation between Lily and the manager in question, right? So she asks about some of the options that she has in terms of the way that the termination is carried out, presumably. And then the manager tells her the options, tells her about the finances, tells her to wait again. And then Lily again asks about the finances and asking if they can make a tweet about the situation to tell their audience that they are going to be leaving NOA Talent. And then the manager confirms that, confirms various things, presumably something to do with a timeline as to when the termination agreement would be sent out to Lily, and telling her to wait for confirmation. Lily affirms, that sounds good. Decision was made on the 22nd of July to give up her model and branding same day as the termination notice went live, no contract sent afterwards. This was the last that Lily heard of this termination agreement or contract. It never made it onto her desk, allegedly, and she never got the chance to sign it, allegedly. Public statement was released, and the public statement was released without the termination contract on July 23rd. This is important because what it means is that the statement in question was not the termination agreement, right? Now, that blows open the possible limitations on what Lily might mean by public statement. Because again, a statement is a very vague term. It can mean an announcement, it can mean a tweet, it can mean a personal, like a rant by one of the other members of management, foreshadowing, in the Discord, right? So again, there is, it's not necessarily that NOA posted the termination agreement in their Discord. It doesn't necessarily mean that they posted a properly structured formal notice in the Discord. It could just be something as simple as another talent mouthing off, right? So, in response to this, a VTuber by the name of Murray Sinead, I hope I'm saying that correctly, asked Lily a few more questions about the circumstances surrounding her termination. Could you clarify what a termination contract is? It seems odd that the company is expecting you to sign a document when they terminate you. Was it a understanding of the terms under which you would be parting with the company? To which Lily states, yes, the termination contract is supposed to be signed by both talent and company to ensure that legally both sides have agreed to part ways amicably. And then Mari then replies, okay, thanks for clarifying. I understand if you don't feel comfortable answering this question, but I'm curious. Do you know if your termination had anything to do with the Serge drama, or was it just coincidental timing? To which Lily confirms, my termination has nothing to do with other talents and their own conflicts. So, on the bright side, this does mean that there was nothing to do with Lily and Serge. They are not being terminated for a shared reason, and again, well, at least according to Lily, there was no relationship between the two, right? It's just coincidence, unfortunate timing, and also unfortunate repetition of managerial misconduct in both cases. Perhaps misconduct is too strong a word. Mismanagement, managerial blunders. So, that still leaves one question. What were the statements that caused Lily to make such a drastic shift in tone? What were these statements that were publicly made in the Discord that caused her to believe that Noah had burnt that bridge, and to which she in response was also deciding to burn that bridge? Well, thankfully, again, in TVA, someone managed to screenshot what these statements were. They were Discord updated tweets from a user called EOS. If you will remember, EOS was one of the talents listed under the affiliate roster for NOA Talent's YouTube page. EOS states, imagine dogpiling on a situation, pretending you're a victim when you violated a very active contract because you kept delaying signing a termination. I can't stand fake victims. I'm sorry to all the people I've hurt. And then the very next day, I'm sorry to all the people I've hurt. I own the mistakes I've made, but don't hold me accountable for someone else's words or actions or grievances. I never defended aggressors or took sides in any of this. If person A shoots person B and person C goes to jail for knowing person A, how is that fair? What I would assume, so again, this was something that was posted on the 23rd, this was something that was posted on the 24th, and I would assume that this is the statement that Lily was referring to. Now, what I assume is going on here is that EOS was subtweeting Lily about the Serge situation. Person A, I would assume, is Serge. Person B, I would assume, is are Serge's victims. Person C, I would assume, is EOS herself. And she's accusing Lily of dogpiling on the situation by stating that EOS herself is somehow also a guilty party in Serge's misconduct. Now, in any other situation, if this was just one talent mouthing off another, this is a really bad look. But maybe I can put that down to just being unprofessional, right? Being catty, being petty, etc., etc. It's not ideal, but I would assume that there are going to be measures in place to prevent that kind of behavior. There is, however, one problem. Who is EOS? If you go onto NOA Talent affiliates page, if you go onto their website, it just gives her bio, right? EOS ellipsis, hover for a glimpse into their virtual universe. Discover the story behind EOS ellipsis, and then it lists her bio there, right? Her in-universe lore. Except, when you go to EOS ellipses Billy page, it turns out EOS and Quinn are the same person. If you go over, pretty much one of their earliest videos that they've uploaded onto their EOS profile is her explicitly stating, publicly, mind you, she is Quinn. They are the same person. Just because, and again, I want to make this very clear, right? I found this information myself purely through looking. I was able to, sorry, I shouldn't say I found it. I was able to confirm this information for myself purely through going through public profiles, right? Googling EOS ellipses, NOA Talent, going onto their public Bilibili, going through their videos, right? And just because the public may not be aware of this, just because you're not explicitly stating that on your website, doesn't mean that people aren't going to be able to find it. It was not very difficult for me to find this, which leads into a much larger problem, because now this is no longer a case of a catty fight between two talents. This is now a co-founder, a manager or former manager, subtweeting a talent that had now been terminated, while under the guise of being another talent herself, right? I'm not saying that Noah is trying to hide the fact that these two are the same person. What I am saying is that they haven't made it very clear, at least to the Western side of their audience. And that is a problem, because you cannot have your managers. Well, okay, first off, having your managers as talents is already a practice that has a very colorful history in the VTubing industry. But you cannot ever have your managers engaging in this kind of conflict, this public argument, this shit-flinging with another talent. It's not a good look. There is no way you can spin it to make it an okay thing. Because, again, like I keep saying, a manager is basically an embodiment of the corporation itself, right? You are not just a person. You are a representative of a larger entity, a larger inhuman entity. So when people see that you are going at it with another talent, you don't get as much of the benefit of the doubt as any other person would if this was treated as a, your average everyday interpersonal conflict, right? And in doing this, we now also understand what Noah meant by affiliate. Affiliate, presumably, means that those talents, quote unquote, are staff at Noah as well. Maybe they're artists, maybe they're riggers, maybe they're managers or whatever. But they aren't just talents, I would assume, given this as a precedent. And again, the main problem with all of this is one that I talked about in the very first video I ever uploaded to this channel. The issue of professionalism, right? And again, professionalism means different things depending on who you ask. But in the West, professionalism, especially when it comes to public communications, PR, means the independence and discretion to adhere to an ethical framework while doing your job. Professional doesn't just mean that you control how you express yourself. It doesn't just mean that you try your best to appear like someone who isn't, it doesn't mean being unemotional or anything like that, or detached. It means that you are able to juggle ethical conduct with doing your job, right? And again, this is like one of the most basic things that we learn when we are first given PR training in a media degree, right? Professionalism is something that people stress in the West because specifically in the West, there is a massive problem with the PR industry where the public at large views it as entirely being comprised out of slimy business people whose only job is to deceive the public. And that in and of itself is a problem that is mostly due to the fact that people only remember bad PR or ineffective PR. They don't remember all of the effective, ethical, good attempts at PR because, again, they work. So, this is something that is specifically really important to the West because it is a uniquely Western problem that PR, the entire industry of PR, is like, it has a negative public perception, right? And to go even further, in order to sustain
the impression that you are sticking to an ethical guideline, right? Some sort of ethical standard. There are 3 obligations, broadly speaking, that you need to be able to fulfill. 1, you need to make sure that you obey laws and regulations. Thankfully, in the case of NOA Talent, I do believe that they've been completely legal, completely regulation compliant in all of their operations thus far. That's fine. That's good. The second thing, obviously, if you're going to do a job, you have to do it competently. This is where things start to slip a little bit. 1 is an anomaly. 2 is a coincidence. 3 is a pattern. That's, a pattern of behavior. 3 times now, Noah has jumped the gun on announcing something or making some sort of public statement on something that really should have been kept under the wraps, or something that should have been properly baked in the oven before being taken out to serve to customers. So, again, whoever's managing their web pages, they are not being paid enough to do their job. Whoever's in charge of their PR, well, I would argue that they don't actually have someone in charge of doing their PR, and I would assume that Quinn is just the one who's been stuck with the job. Although, that being said, I don't think Quinn makes for a very effective PR representative, given what we now have seen. And then, again, this all speaks to an upper management that has been grossly overconfident in their own ability to effectively move into a Western audience. Because very honestly, very obviously, they are not ready to make the move. They are not properly equipped for the job. Yeah, funnelists in chat, we don't have a PR department, Noah, according to Sayu. This isn't something that I've included in the slides, but after returning from Shanghai, from Bilibili World Expo, I believe, Sayu did have a stream where she talked about how she had been discussing with this mysterious company that she was supposed to join. And again, I say mysterious company because it wasn't her that leaked it, it was Noah that leaked it. She stated that she had been in talks with them about their thoughts on their own expansion westward. And she said, I believe I'm quoting this, that, actually, I take that back. Not a direct quote, but I do believe that she said something along the lines of, she was concerned with how arrogant they seemed to be. How confident they were in the effectiveness of their own strategies. That they said that they didn't have a PR department, and they didn't believe that they needed one. And again, that kind of overconfidence is deadly to a corporation. It's bad enough when you are a public figure, but as a corporation, that shit kills. It might not kill you immediately, but it will be a slow and painful death through loss of market share and dominance. But anyways, yeah. So, competent practice, not really there. The upper management doesn't really seem to know what they're doing, or at least they didn't seem to know what they're doing. Hopefully, they've been given a very painful lesson in correcting their expectations of what they are capable of. But again, this is me being hopeful more than what has been proven through their behavior thus far. Anyways, the final thing, reflecting moral values in your conduct. This is a very important one, especially when you are communicating as an individual who is representing a larger entity. Because, like I said, corporations are not seen as human. As a result, there is sort of this underlying expectation that if a corporation were allowed to, it would behave in a way that does not comply with human morality. However, things are different when you are a person who claims to represent a corporation, right? Because you are a person. People see you as a person, and people expect people to behave in a moral manner. And that's why it's really important that you express that you are able to conduct yourself with moral values, with values like, truthfulness, compassion, understanding, basic human empathy, and in this particular case, restraint. let's say, for example, right, again, this is being quite generous considering the lack of information we have as the public. Let's say, for example, that Lily was not terminated for no reason. I don't think that's unreasonable to say, right? There was probably a reason why Lily was terminated. Let's say, for example, that this reason was something that pissed off Quinn as a manager, as someone who publicly has her name attached to this organization because she is a co-founder of NOA Talent. That doesn't mean she has a license to start going at Lily in the public Discord under her EOS persona, right? There is a need to show restraint in the way that particular issue is being dealt with. Professionalism would dictate that Noah should be severing these ties behind closed doors with discretion, because again, creating a public shit-flinging contest, making a corporate, a professional disagreement into a personal public one, that is the kind of strategy that we have seen before. Courtesy of Nijisanji. That is exactly, again, this is supposed to be a trade disagreement, right? A professional disagreement. Lily and Noah are not built for one another, and so they are terminating their contract with one another. The moment you take this public and frame it as a personal disagreement, you have crossed a line, right? And again, I understand why you would feel that way, especially if you are expressing your emotions as a not as a manager, but as another talent. But Quinn does not get the right to do that anymore because she is a manager. She is a co-founder. She is more than just another talent. They are not on equal footing. And so it comes across really badly when she fails to show that moral value of restraint in her conduct. So, thankfully, after this entire mess, we do get a happy ending of sorts. First, Lily would make this reply to her previous tweet. "This will be my final update." Sorry, the date is wrong. It should say 25th of July. "As I have been reached out to and things are being handled privately as they should have been. Take care of yourselves. Let's finally move on. I only ask that you please do not involve any unrelated talents or engage in speculations. Thank you." So, some sort of happy ending there. Things are finally being worked out privately, professionally, the way they should have been from the start. Again, it's like you have, does this help the situation? Yes. Would you wish that it didn't have to come to this? Also, yes. So, anyways, about on the 30th of July, again, sorry for the wrong dates. I didn't manage to edit this part of the presentation before starting this stream. On the 30th of July, NOA Talent would finally come out with a final announcement where they are publicly admitting to fault and talking about all of these disasters that have cascaded from that first post about Serge VT. So, in the first portion, they write, "This is an official statement from NOA's management concerning the miscommunication between NOA and ex-talent Noie, as well as the misinformation surrounding NOA and ex-talent Serge VT. We want to preface this statement by apologizing to all the people who have been affected by everything that has happened so far. NOA never wished for such an outcome. Unfortunately, a mixture of poor luck, poor timing, mistakes, and misunderstandings among members of NOA staff led to the situation degrading at a rapid and uncontrolled pace. Thus, we are making a statement to rectify the mistakes that have been made and clear the air." Concerning Serge VT. Serge VT isn't a part of NOA anymore, and the management team never had any plans to rebrand him. While Serge did share an interest in the idea of rebranding, management decided that his termination would be final. Poor timing and miscommunication are what led to misinformation being spread about the situation. Serge VT's graduation announcement was made too early before he had time to clear all of his socials from everything that connected him to Noah. We also wish to point out that, unlike other agencies, Noah gives talents full control and access to all their social media accounts. Now, I do want to point out that maybe, if Shimizu Shiroi at NOATalent.com had not been added to Shimizu Shiroi's Bilibili account, that would have been fine. However, again, there is a difference between clearing your socials and replacing what was previously there with a new entry. What this statement fails to address is the fact that Serge has, for some reason, not only cleared all of Serge's affiliations with Noah from his socials, but then replaced it with another Noah affiliation. This needed NOA Talent to condemn that. They needed to say that this was done without our consent, without our knowledge, without our approval. We do not approve of this. We do not want him here, etc., etc. And again, they really needed to say that this was something that was his decision, not their decision. Because, like I said before, sure, maybe they made Shimizu Shiroi at NOATalent.com with the intention that it would never be used, but it doesn't explain why he used it after clearing all of his previous affiliations from his socials. Anyways, to go on. After events that happened outside of our scope of operation had damaged the reputation and trustworthiness of Serge VT, both Noah and Serge VT agreed that it would be better for both parties to move towards terminating their contract. Everything happened amicably. However, the statement being released early created unnecessary confusion and anger. We humbly apologize for the confusion or distraught that happened to follow this lack of due diligence on our part. We ask the public for respect and we ask the public to respect the wishes of Noah and Serge VT to dissociate from one another, and we reaffirm our commitment to protect our talents. Now, here's the problem, right? Safiria would then reply to this tweet in a quote tweet saying, "So we are just going to gloss over the fact that Serge asked for a rebrand after saying that he was going to work on himself and get therapy? That's wild. It took all of 2 seconds for him to try and come back. You're as fake as those apologies you gave us." And again, that is a direct result of them failing to disavow what Serge had done by taking an allegedly never used and not supposed to be used email address that was affiliated with NOA Talent and putting that in his bio instead. On top of that, there is also the issue that because that affiliation is there, Noah, all of this is, all of it comes back to the fact that Serge is an unsavory person that has been guilty of misconduct. However, the only reason that NOA Talent is still suffering from that is because they have a public affiliation with him. They didn't do their due diligence, by their own admission, of clearing all of that out before attempting to publicly disassociate with him. And when you have that kind of mismatch in your communications, this kind of response is completely justified. So, again, this is just a cascade of, well, if I'm being completely honest, negligence from management. The second part, Noie, and this is where things start to look up a little bit. Concerning Noie, After a lengthy discussion with Nolie following multiple discrepancies, both Noah and Nolie agreed that it was in both parties' interest to terminate the contract and secede their cooperation, and that it should happen in an amicable way. However, while negotiations weren't finished and details were still being discussed over among the members of management, a termination announcement was made on the NOA Discord. We wish to express our sincerest apologies to Nolie concerning this announcement. It was planned to remain internal, but subsequent to what is evidently miscommunication, one of the managers posted the announcement on the public Discord without authorization. I would assume that this manager is Quinn/Eowys, because it doesn't specify. And again, the fact that it doesn't specify, despite the fact that these interactions did take place, it leaves us with only one option, one assumption that we can make. We are aware that this was rather unprofessional. That's putting it mildly. We wish to reopen communication so that this contractual situation may be resolved peacefully. Noah does not have any interest in suing, slandering, or harming Nolie. Simply put, this statement being made public was a mistake, one that we again apologize for. This is the thing that gives me a little bit of hope that they can come back from this. Because this is a lot more than other companies have done in the past, right? This expresses a humility, a much-needed humility, an admission of fault that, quite honestly, they would not be able to make this statement work without, right? They needed to come out and say, we fucked up, we're sorry. And to their credit, they have done that here. We once again ask the public to respect both Noah and Nolie's wishes, as both parties have already agreed previously that they want to move away from each other peacefully. There is neither harm nor malice to be found, as this situation boils down to a human error. It is good that they have included that little bit at the end, saying that it's not out of malice that this misunderstanding, quote, misunderstanding, took place. Because again, this is something that a lot of people would have reasonably been concerned about, given everything else that has happened this year. However, again, the fact that Eowys stepped in there and subtweeted the way that she did, very unprofessional, and it kind of devalues this statement a little bit. Although hopefully, since this is now a statement that presumably comes from upper management, that is something that will not happen again going forward. And then Lily replies, after an extensive conversation with head management from NOA, we have identified the issues that led up to my termination and the termination statement. They have promised to fix the issues moving forward so future repeats can be prevented, which I appreciate. I'm glad we had a discussion and reached a proper conclusion, so going forward, we can both move on. Thank you for everyone's support. In this regard, at least, we have a happy ending. Lily is no longer associated with Noah, Noah is no longer associated with Lily, and no one is getting sued, which is always a good thing. Moving on to the final section. Moving forward. These two incidents happening so close to one another have, for better or worse, shown us the flaws in the way certain things are running behind the scenes. Hallelujah! Thank fuck they've finally realized that something is severely wrong in their internal work environment, that there are practices that don't work, that there are people fucking up. Holy, this is the part that I really wish would happen more often in more corporations when they try to do something. There have been so many instances in the past where you've seen a corporation fuck up this bad and they have never admitted to anything like this. So it is, everything aside, it is kind of cathartic for me to finally read this being, said in a public statement about how things are going on the inside of a corporation. We have already identified some of the issues that need fixing, what can be improved, and more. We at NOA promise to better ourselves. Again, that phrase, better ourselves, this has to be among the most overused terms in any apology that is made on social media. Anyways, so that this sort of incident doesn't happen again. As our top priority remains the well-being of our talents and the happiness of their fans, who are the people that give NOA its identity. Dated July 30th, 2024, NOA Talent Management. Again, I will be correcting all of the dates in these slides before I upload them onto my Patreon. By the way, if you didn't know, all of the slides for all of my streams are made publicly available on my Patreon page, linked in the description, and you can access them, read them, download them for free. You don't need to be a paid member in order to access them. I just put them there because it's convenient to put them there. Alright, so, here's the thing, right? I'm going to approach this with the assumption that that when they say this, as overused, as meaningless as this phrase has become, that they genuinely mean it. And for free, I'm going to give them the barest outline of how I would expect they would fix these issues, right? Again, had I been, a fly on the wall in their offices when they had these discussions, had I been privy to internal information, I probably would be able to give a lot more specific guesses as to what they might need to fix as a PR consultant, but given the information that the public has now, there are a few things we would need to be changing. So this is going to be the section where we go through how can NOA Talent fix itself, right? How can it amend its disastrous entrance into the West? Very important distinction here. The idea of bettering yourself. I want to make this very clear. I am not looking to rebrand NOA Talent. I am not looking to revamp their public image, because both of these things are worthless. What I am actually looking to do is reform their practices. And the reason why I am looking at this, not this, despite the fact that I'm looking at this from a PR perspective, as someone who has received PR training, is because this is a natural consequence of doing this correctly. If you pursue this on its own, this is almost always because you only view this as a short-term band-aid to fix a gaping hole of a problem. So, again, fix your internals and you will fix your image. It may take time, it may take a lot of time. In the meantime, you may get dunked on, made fun of, and rejected by many people multiple times. But, in the end, if you prove consistently, you keep at it, you prove that you have actually made meaningful changes to your internal practices, your internal work environment, people will eventually understand that you have changed for the better. People may forgive you, but more importantly, you will be able to attract an audience that you can actually keep. So, anyways. To do this, so previously I've stated that, the two problems that you're trying to address in any PR strategy are, one, that your audience might not hear what you are trying to say, and two, that effective PR does not make up for ineffective management. This, and in regards to the first problem, that was addressed through a framework that was called PEST, right? Political, economical, social, and technological, right? There is a second framework, right? Whereas the first one was aimed at understanding your audience, understanding the environment in which you are going to be operating. This one is more about understanding yourself, right? This is called a SWOT analysis. Very simple acronym, right? Your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. This is where you take a long, hard look in the mirror and you try to understand how your company functions as a business entity. What are the internal workings that go on as you operate your business, and how do those affect your possible, communications, audiences, whatever, right? So, when it comes to NOA Talent's strengths and opportunities, they're pretty simple. Their strengths. They have connections in China to some pretty big names. Bilibili, as bad as its reputation is nowadays in the West. Hoyoverse, more importantly, which is again a very attractive potential business. Very attractive partner, very attractive affiliation that you can offer to the talents that join you. They have access to technologies. They can offer a lot of assistance, a lot of opportunities to possible talents that may be looking to join, seeking to do more stuff with their content. And last but not least, definitely not least, they have access to the Chinese market. Very large population, very active online population. Perhaps not the population that everyone would want to cater to, but it's definitely there, and it's definitely profitable. As a direct result of having these strengths, Noa also has been offered a specific set of opportunities in the West. They have larger entities that are more established in that space that are now interested in them because organizations like Mythic Talent are looking to expand eastward as well. They want newer audiences. They want more audiences, right? You also have specific talents like Sayu, who is, again, very large, right? Relatively speaking. She has over 1k subs, consistently 1k CCV. She is a big fish, relatively speaking. You have talents like that who are interested in the kind of support, the kind of opportunities that you are capable of providing. This is, by the way, your best bet when it comes to trying to expand into the Western market. Because one of the things that Sayu mentioned when in her return stream, when she was talking about, some of the cultural differences between how businesses operate in China and businesses operate in the West, is that, and this is the specific example that she gave, there are businesses in China that are very comfortable with the idea of buying reviews, right? Buying positive reviews to hopefully lead audiences into trusting their product or trusting their service. That does not fly in the West, because in the West, people do not trust reviews. People do not trust mainstream media. Again, this links back to what I was talking about with the idea of openness and how that manifests when we regard other individuals in terms of our expectations for honesty and authenticity. Now, as a side effect of that, when we like a specific person, when we decide as an audience or audience member that we like a specific creator, that almost always means that we tend to think of them as being an honest and or authentic person. Now, what that means is people in the West, audiences in the West, do not trust companies, do not trust products, do not trust services, do not trust governments, do not trust mainstream media, but we do trust individuals, right? If an individual creator, or even an individual in real life proves themselves to be honest, proves themselves to be authentic, we tend to trust them. And by extension, we tend to we will give more of a chance to the things that they give a chance to. And that's the thing. Noa doesn't have the option of buying positive reviews in the West. Their best bet for getting an audience to view them positively is to treat talents that those audiences are already attached to positively. And again, this is why it's a two-way street. Just as they offer Sayu the chance to access a larger audience, possible, partnerships, sponsorships, opportunities with Hoyoverse, possible help with getting her content, helping her with 3D, live 2D content as well. Sayu is also offering them a very important service through affiliation, essentially. And that's where things start to break down, because the moment they fail at conducting themselves professionally, Sayu can no longer afford to associate with them. And when she expresses hesitation in associating with them, that is a massive red flag that they are doing something very wrong. Because again, the trust of creators like her is integral for them getting the trust of audiences like us. On top of that, as a combination of these two things, the fact that they are appealing to both creators, potentially appealing to creators and to organizations that are already established in the West. They also get opportunities like attending various events where they can gain exposure for the talents that they already have in their roster and that they're attempting to walk in with instead of adopt. So that about covers it for the strengths and opportunities. However, they have a lot of weaknesses. Judging based on what we've seen thus far, their weaknesses include, but are not limited to, lack of sufficient staff and or training. Again, the thing that happens with Quinn basically being designated as the PR representative, despite not seeming to be very comfortable with that job, that is a sign that you either don't have enough people in your company to do that job, or that she has not been properly trained to do that job. And again, I want to reiterate, Quinn is only listed as being an audition manager and co-founder. She is not listed anywhere as having the job of being a PR person. She's not listed as being a public representative. And as a result, I don't blame her if she's simply not being paid enough to do that job well. However, again, that does not excuse the EOS statements though. Lack of clear protocol for terminations. This is a very glaring problem that we have seen in both cases with Serge and with Noie. They don't seem to know what they're doing. They're making it up as they go, and that has directly bitten them in the ass on both occasions. The fact that it happened so close to one another is thankfully a reason why they seem to have realized that this is now a problem. Although, like I said, they are supposedly founded by people who've been in the VTubing industry for a while. So, I don't know if in China it's the norm to do this as your termination strategy, but it's not going to fly in the West. And this links into the next thing as well. Lack of clear professional standards and or codes of conduct for talent and staff. Again, the EOS thing, that should not be happening. And look, should EOS be removed? No. Okay? I'm not going to be the one to say that someone deserves to have their possible future career, their dreams taken away from them. EOS as a treasurer, that's fine, right? EOS as an audition manager, that's fine. EOS as a co-founder, that's, sure. EOS cannot be a talent manager. EOS cannot be a talent manager going forwards. Like, if I'm being completely honest, that ship has sailed. That interaction, that is not somewhere you want to go. And actually, while I'm on this topic, right, I don't think people should be fired for what has been happening. And the reason why I don't think people should be fired is because so far I am willing to believe that the frustrations, the lack of professionalism is due to a personal emotional investment in how the company does. I want to believe that these people actually do want NOA Talent to succeed, that this isn't just a glorified stock trading maneuver, right? This isn't, NOA Talent exists as more than just a publicly traded stock generating, profit generating entity, right? That people actually care about making this agency work. And when you make mistakes like these are painful lessons, right? But these are painful lessons that need to be learned and need to be remembered. And the problem is when you fire people immediately, instead of using this as an opportunity to learn something, reform your training practices and move forward, and if you just fire them and replace them with a new batch of people, you tend to lose those lessons, right? So again, I don't think that people should be fired, but I do think that people should have their roles changed around a little bit. Like I said, EOS as a manager, I don't think that will work going forward. Lack of experience operating in a volatile foreign market, especially among upper management. This whole thing reeked of upper management not understanding the difference between Bilibili and Twitter. Because those two, even though again, shit posting, clout chasing, all of that stuff, that's not unique to either platform. Both platforms do that. But people have different cultural expectations, right? And people express themselves differently. Admittedly, Twitter has the ability to make any controversy much more widespread, much worse. And again, management were very obviously not prepared for that. So this is definitely a weakness that they had. And hopefully it's a weakness that they no longer have, given everything that has happened. Lack of understanding of audiences and social attitudes in the West. This is a very big one. It ties into the previous one. Again, you need to understand when you're moving in from the East, the West has an obsession with openness. They expect authenticity, honesty, transparency, consistency. Sure, businesses might not pay much attention to this in China because they're too busy caring about what government regulations are, but this is a major concern in the West. In the West, yes, you are answerable to government, but you are also way more answerable to consumers. Going on from this, lack of PR expertise, training, and or advice from external consultants. Famously, we don't have a PR team. We don't need a PR team. Hopefully they've changed their tune by now. They don't have to hire someone like me. They just have to hire someone who's going to fix what they're doing. Hopefully someone who actually does have experience operating in the West. Because hiring a PR firm out of China, I doubt is going to fix their problems. Flawed talent selection process. This is not something that they stated in their final address, but this is very obviously a problem. You don't manage to take on someone like Serge if everything is working as intended in your vetting process. So, very obviously, there is something going wrong here. Something in the way that they are selecting their talents is not working. And hopefully that is something they are going to be looking at going forward. Poor website and web page management and maintenance. Again, twice now, they have made mistakes in changing their YouTube channel that either ends up leaking something or ends up incriminating them for something that was entirely avoidable if they just properly looked after it. Again, it could very much be the case that whoever is in charge of upkeeping their website is simply not paid enough to do that job, but hopefully, going forward, they understand that someone does need to be paid to do that job properly. So, inflexible promotional strategy. That's the final one. And again, it's pretty obvious. They don't really know what exactly will stick in terms of either promoting themselves in the Western market. They're very obviously just going for a very cookie cutter approach. The main problem is that, again, they're going into it assuming that if they just get into enough events, they get into enough exposure, if they are seen as an established agency, that'll be enough. Unfortunately for them, the past year alone has given the VTubing industry, the audiences in the VTubing industry, a lot of reasons to be skeptical of any small or relatively unknown VTuber corporation. Okay, so moving onwards. What are some of the threats that they are facing? And in this case, you can break them up into two broad categories: external threats and internal threats. External threats, pretty simple, right? Twitter's ability to amplify controversy and speculation. On Twitter, when you make a move, when you as a corporation, when you're about to promote something, when you're about to make a decision like a termination, a suspension, whatever, you need to be prepared, right? You need to make sure that you have a response ready. You need to make sure that you have at least thought about what your audience might say, because everything on Twitter is a public conversation that will, at any moment, devolve into a public melee instead. And you need to be prepared for that as a corporation. Hostile attitudes towards China and Metashot. Again, they need to understand that they are coming in from a position of weakness, because people are going to be looking at anything that comes out of China through the lens of what happened to HoloCN all those years ago. The PTSD has not worn off. We are not, we're still going to freak out when we hear firecrackers going off in the distance. And unfortunately for Noah, That is simply a fact of life that they're going to have to adjust for in their PR strategy. Another thing, recent skepticism towards smaller, lesser-known VTuber corpos. This is what I've talked about before. Again, past year. And again, this isn't even restricted to small VTuber corpos, just like VTuber corpos in general, honestly. Being a VTuber corpo is no longer enough for people to automatically give you the pass. First, we have Nijisanji. Then we had Wakter. Then we had VC, as much of a shit show as that was. Then we had Idol EN. And when I say that, when I put Idol EN in that group, I'm mostly referring to upper management. The talent managers, the talents themselves, they're absolutely fine. It's the upper managers that are the problem in Idol. That were the problem, I should say. Even a corpo like Brave Group was also in hot water because they somehow managed to make the mistake of leaking the information of people who auditioned to them. So, again, so far this year, we have not had a great track record when it comes to corpos doing their job properly. So, understandably, being a corpo is no longer enough for people to, extend a little bit more of their trust towards you as an entity. Finally, incompatible cultural values and attitudes. They don't seem to understand, well, hopefully now they understand how things are different, but they don't seem to have understood before. In terms of internal threats, these are going to be the ones that are more important to deal with, in my opinion, and also a little harder to properly diagnose. First thing, bad actors among existing personnel. Like I said before, the problem with something like Serge is that now it's basically turned the talent roster into a game of Among Us, where because they have a flawed talent selection process, they now need to look at the roster they have, the staff they have, and determine if they have any ticking time bombs in there that might damage their operation, their path moving forwards. You can't wait for the public to find out that for you. You need to be able to understand what's going on internally yourself, which is why I think it's very important for them to review how they took on these talents, how they decided to take on these talents, and have some very important but perhaps uncomfortable conversations with their talents about what their expectations are of each other going forward, right? This is why something like having a professional code of conduct is so important, because a professional code of conduct is one of the best ways that you can weed out bad actors. Because when you have a conduct that people are not sticking to, you can then have something concrete to point to, say that they are violating it, and if they continue to do so after that initial warning, you have no need to hesitate when you take them out, when you excise them from your business. Next thing, unsustainable work practices. Again, the fact that so many jobs are being done to a shoddy degree points to me that it's not being done in a sustainable manner. People are not being paid enough money to do that job properly. I am even having doubts as to whether someone has that role or whether it's just something that is being, sort of made up or covered on a case-by-case basis as soon as people have time. And again, that's not a great way of trying to debut a corporation. Among Us sus? Yeah. I hate how I can no longer, I've told people before how I'm Catholic, right? The other day I was sitting in mass, right? And the priest was reading out a passage from the Bible, and he said something along the lines of a prophet among us. And I hate how the moment I heard that, I had to suppress a smile on my face because I could no longer hear the phrase among us and take it seriously. I just kept thinking of that fucking game. But it's such a ruined phrase. It's such a brain rotted phrase. It's almost like how I predict in 5 years people, well actually no, not in 5 years, perhaps in 5 months or so, if once the Skibbity Toilet movie comes out, whenever that does come out, people will no longer be able to hear the word toilet without giggling either. But anyways, next thing, upper management's lack of familiarity with Western audiences. This is a pretty blatant internal problem. But again, I am hopeful, since they did acknowledge in their public statement that, they know now that there are some things going wrong internally. I hope this has all given upper management a reason to take a hard look in the mirror and think how ready they actually are. And that ties in with the final thing. Hubris. That may sound like a meme, but I 100% mean it, and it is 100% applicable to this situation. This entire thing, the lack of due diligence, the lack of responsiveness, the unprofessional conduct, this is all due to hubris. They thought they were going to be some big shot shouldering their way into a foreign market, and they were told to sit the fuck down because they didn't know how things worked over here. But again, hubris isn't incurable. Okay, and this is going to sound a little morbid. The cue to hubris is often suffering. Hardship is a great way of tempering pride. Because when you confront shortcomings, when you are made to face adversity, that is when you are forced to kind of acknowledge your own limitations. So, hopefully this has been enough suffering and hardship for Noah's upper management to abate their hubris a little bit. Okay, in terms of what Noah could have done, and this is what I'm going to go through, right? What Noah could have done, and then what they need to do going forward, right? And again, this is my armchair diagnosis, pun intended, right? First thing they could have done, right? Remove all affiliate links from Serge VT and Shimizu Shiroi's accounts prior to terminating Serge. It's not a lot to ask for. It's not a very complex thing to wrap your mind around. You really just should have done this. It would have saved everyone so much pain and headache and heartbreak. Or, and this is the alternative, right? State in the notice that it would be an ongoing process. Regardless of what you do, Shimizu Shiroi at NOA.com needs to be deleted, right? It is not okay to say that it's going to be an ongoing process if Serge ends up removing Serge VT, ends up removing Serge at NOATalent.com and then replacing it with Shimizu Shiroi at NOATalent.com, right? That's not going to fly. You have to kill Shimizu Shiroi at NOATalent.com, right? Not, again, to YouTube, I'm not saying you need to kill the person. I'm saying you need to shut down the account, okay? It's not a threat of violence. It's me telling them to do something to do with an account, okay? Alright. Now that the bots are hopefully no longer listening. The next thing they could have done, prepare a single, coherent, public statement that would address public concern about Shimizu Shiroi's affiliation with NOA Talent. This is what they could have done if they didn't do this, right? If things were starting to go to shit, this is what they needed to do. They shouldn't have had Quinn running around trying to reply to individual posts and threads or people. They should have just had one coherent, promptly released statement from NOA Talent's own account. And then the next part of this. Do not attempt to silence critics. Just address their concerns. I keep saying this, but it's always going to be applicable. Trying to silence individual people is not a good look. Just address what they're saying. Let them say their piece and say yours as well. That's the best way of doing things. Even if it's just so you don't end up looking like you are some sort of malevolent oppressor, right? Even if it's just for optics, it's still good to let your critics just, provided it's not like outright defamation or anything, it's just just let them say what they have to say and then respond to what they have to say. And the final thing, resolve their termination with Lily/Nolie in private in a professional manner. There is no excuse for what was happening in the Discord, which caused Lily to, change her tone. Right? That just blanket should not have happened. And again, I understand if there may be some sort of personal disagreement behind the scenes. I can't be really sympathetic to it because the public has no information on if that's the case or how that happened, if so. But you cannot allow that personal disagreement, that personal conflict, to leak over into your professional conduct as well. This is very simply, there is no alternative. There is no, maybe they could have changed one sentence here or there. No. This was just what they should have done. No ifs, no buts, no exceptions. This is what they should have done. Anyways. Okay. As Quinn said, it is what it is. The past is the past. We can't really do anything to change it. So, moving forward. What should Noah do? These are my guesses, right? And again, this is me making guesses purely based off of publicly available information, having no idea as to what their internal environment is like. They need reassignment and training of staff. There is no way around this. The people who are currently there are not sufficiently trained to do their jobs. They've had a baptism of fire now, which is why some of them may be freshly equipped to do the job that they need to do. But on top of that, some of them need to be reassigned, right? Like I said, I don't think EOS is in a position to be a manager anymore. EOS can continue as a talent for sure. I don't think there's any problem with Quinn being an auditions manager. I don't think there's a problem with her being a treasurer or a co-founder, although those may have their own issues if things get worse internally. Being staff and talent at the same time is never an easy line to walk, and personally it is never an advisable line to walk. But I think she can continue as staff. It's just that I don't think she can continue in a managerial role. Like I said, that ship has sailed. However, in line with that, you do need a designated spokesperson for NOA Talent. It's past time that NOA Talent had one. They need to designate one. So it's not Quinn, just one person running around desperately trying to, cover Noah's ass. They need someone whose job it is to handle that. Mercurius Orlicus, thank you so much for the 5 gifted membership. Welcome to the 5 new footstools to the club. Nice gift. Thanks for the gift. Hey, there we go. There we go. Welcome to all the new footstools. Hope you guys enjoy the emojis. The next thing that no one needs to do. Create and implement a professional code of conduct for staff and talent. Like I said before, if there are bad actors that manage to sneak in during your flawed auditions process, this is how you weed them out. You need a definite, a set code of professional conduct. Your talents need to know how to conduct themselves. Your staff need to know how to conduct themselves. Especially if you are in a position where your staff are doubling as talent. You need a professional code of conduct. Next thing, create and implement a set of protocols and a list of designated platforms for terminations and termination announcements, respectively. You need to know where you are posting those termination announcements, whether to Twitter, whether to Discord, whether both, and when to each. You need to know how you are going to terminate someone. You need to make sure that you delete all of your affiliation from all of their profiles before you publicly announce that they are being terminated. You need to make sure that when you are crafting a termination agreement, that you understand how those negotiations are going to take place behind closed doors, and you need to understand at which point those processes become public knowledge. This all needs to be set in stone. It cannot be made up as you go. It should not be done on a case-by-case basis, because then you get things like what happened with Noie. And personally, again, I don't care what her reason for being terminated was. I don't care how legitimate that reason was. The way the termination was done was bad. It was flawed. It was unprofessional. It should not be the case moving forward. Finally, identify the target demographics of your content/brand and craft a PR strategy that fits that demographic. You need to know who you're catering to. I'm going to be very cynical for a moment. In the case of Serge VT, this was definitely a case where the Twitter shitstorm that cropped up around it was justified. Like I said, creators like Serge, unsavory persons like Serge, who indulge in that kind of behavior, do not deserve a place in a corporate VTubing environment, or even just a corporate environment. Seeking to isolate someone on the basis of a personal disagreement is never a good thing to do. However, in the future, it is not out of the question that there may be other Twitter shitstorms that are not equally as justifiable. And in the case that happens, the way that you make sure that you are not affected too much by those Twitter shitstorms is by identifying who your target audience is and catering to them. Twitter is not a great promotional platform, in my opinion, because Twitter is not designed to facilitate context-rich and nuanced interactions. However, it is good for drumming up publicity, and for that reason, it is kind of unavoidable for corporate entities seeking to enter the Western market. As of right now, at least. We'll see if Elon manages to kill the platform over the next 5 years or so. But, again, because you are using such a volatile platform, because your messages are likely to be seen by a volatile audience, you need to know who your target audience is. So even if you attract the attention of audiences that are outside of that, you aren't too heavily affected. Finally, hire a PR consultant or retain a PR team, right? And again, this I'm not saying hire me specifically, right? It doesn't have to be me. It could be anyone, right? As long as they know what they're doing, as long as they don't come out of China. But, and this is the important part, do not treat that PR assistant as a substitute for reforming internal practices. For all the reasons that I stated before, one is not a substitute for the other, right? You cannot use effective PR assistance as a substitute for genuine reform, because inevitably in the future, if you don't fix what problems you are having now, internally, you are going to have the exact same problems crop up again. And when it crops up again, no amount of professionalism, no amount of competence in terms of your PR strategy is going to help. Because putting lipstick on a pig is not going to make it appealing to a possible suitor. And that is exactly the kind of attitude that I believe corporations should be approaching their audiences with. You are trying to win them over. You are trying to woo them into giving you their time, their attention, their engagement. The time of your audience is precious. They want to make sure they're not spending it on someone, something that is, well, deeply cynical and evil. So, you, as a corporation, as a non-human entity, need to prove to that audience that you are not that you care about what you're doing, that you care about the people who are under you, and that you care about the people who will be watching their stuff. This is something that, and again, this is a point I've brought up ad nauseum before, but this human aspect to VTubing is something that a lot of corporations have lacked. And again, with this, the reason why I'm doing all of this is because this information, if it's publicly available to more people, my hope is that it will raise the floor. Again, all of this stuff, I'm giving people the most basic of knowledge, right? The most basic things that we are taught when we are first PR trained in a media degree, right? Again, I am no professor. I am not even a professional because I'm not being paid to give this information, right? I'm just handing out the basics. And I'm handing out the basics because the bar is on the fucking floor. Like, when I talk about all of these other corporations that have made blunders throughout this year alone, when I brought up Niji, Wakter, VC, Idol, in terms of their upper management, and even to some extent Brave Group, right? Although not nearly as severe as all of the other ones that I've mentioned. The reason why they disappoint me so much is because these mistakes are so easy to fix with the most basic parts of just, public relations training or knowledge. If they just do these things, right? If they use tools like, making sure that they have professionalism, what exactly that means, right? If they use like SWOT analyses, pest analyses, if they bother to do proper research, if they bother to do proper reform when something's falling apart internally, we would not be getting nearly as much, as many disasters as we've been seeing over the past few months from corporate VTube, from the corporate side of VTubing. And again, when I give out this information, my dream is that at some point in the future, that bar that is currently on the floor gets raised even a little bit. Because the more organizations are able to take on this sort of basic set of practices, this basic set of analyses to prep their work, the higher that bar goes up. The more competitive these organizations become, the more places you have that could possibly home creators like Sayu or anyone else who's currently independent but wants the support of an organization, right? Creators like I know Cottontail VA has also talked about this in the past, where she has expressed that she thinks it would be neat to have the backing of an agency, but she's sort of, in a bit of a bind trying to find one that is actually good enough to justify her joining it. And again, raising the competency of all of these agencies is the ideal scenario, because then they all become a bit more appealing. They all become better, possible homes for these VTubers. And again, on a broader scale, right? I want Noah to succeed. I believe, given the fact that they were capable of publicly acknowledging that they fucked up, that there are things that are in dire need of reform on the inside, I am willing to believe that they have an opportunity, that they have the possibility of reforming, and I want them to succeed. The reason why I want them to succeed, not so much that I care that it's Noah specifically that succeeds, but I just want more VTuber corporations in the Western VTubing industry, in the Western VTubing space, to be competent to succeed, because I want more competition in this space from a corporate perspective, in terms of the corporate side. I really enjoy a lot of the content that comes out of Hollow. I really care about a lot of the creators on the EN and JP side in terms of how well they're doing. A lot of them have stories that I've personally found to be inspirational. A lot of them have made content, streams, clips, animations that have branched off from their stuff, that have given me a reason to smile, to laugh on days where I've had very little going on in my life that would give me a reason to do so. And it is for that reason that I want HoloLive to have competition in this space. Because as someone who cares about their content, as someone who is invested in their creators, I fear what HoloLive may become if they are ever allowed to have a monopoly. Right now in the West, there are competitors that are perhaps capable of going toe-to-toe with their presence in the West. Perhaps not so much in Japan or China, but in the West, like VShojo. I'm not sure if FaZe Connect is truly a competitor, but it is definitely getting there. But again, I want more competition, because more competition gives all of these corporations collectively a reason to keep their standards high and to keep raising their standards as well. Not just the standards of what kind of content they push out to their audiences, but standards in terms of how they treat the talents that work under them. To some, again, one of the reasons why I'm glad that Idol didn't just collapse and die, despite the fact that, again, from all outward signs, their upper management has been, I suppose, a rudderless ship for a while now. One of the reasons why I'm glad that it got acquired by Brave Group instead of just collapsing and dying is because, well, it gives yet another continuation of an EN agency, an EN corpo that could potentially blossom out into a group that introduces more competition into a space, right? Because again, like I said, at the end of the day, regardless of how much you care about Hollow, regardless of how much you want to believe in their superiority, supremacy, right? You still want them to have competition. Because universally, almost universally, and I say this because it's important to remember that corporations are not humans. They're run by humans, but they are not humans. The moment a corporation achieves a monopoly, it is set on a slow, almost certain path that it will morph into something completely unrecognizable a few years down the line. Look at the way Google is now, because again, it's very recently been formally declared to be a monopoly. Look at the way Google was 10, 15 years ago. The two companies, the two platforms even, completely unrecognizable. Same thing could happen to any company. HoloLive is no exception. And that is why, yet again, I want NOA Talent to be able to succeed. I want to be able to have faith, as naive as that might sound, that maybe, given the fact that they are willing to acknowledge all of their faults, they have a chance to fix all of their faults. They will fix their faults going forward. Because I want more competition. I don't want monopoly. I want the industry to improve. And so, at the end of the day, to anyone out there looking to start your own agency, to any agency whose staff, for some reason, might be watching this stream, a few things I want you to remember. Your audience is your lifeblood. How you communicate with them will be the thing that determines, in the long run, whether your corporation lives or dies. You are trading on human capital, and you need to be able to assure your audience that you understand that simple, fundamental fact of the industry that you occupy. You are trading in human beings and human connection. You cannot treat them as objects. You cannot treat them as items. You must treat them as human beings, which requires you to be human, act with a moral compass, with professionalism, despite being an inhuman business entity. Remember that what you say might not be what your audience hears, that it is always prudent to prick up your ears and listen for a bit before deciding to launch your own message into a space. Remember that good PR is no substitute for good management. And finally, this is the most important thing of all. Remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer, and that nobody is above that. Not any color, not Nijisanji, and if you're a small corpo, definitely not you. So yeah. If anyone knows where I got that last quote from, based. It's honestly surprising to me how how hard it is, I guess, for most people to grasp. Or I shouldn't say most people. That's not really fair. These executives that like start VTubing corpos to grasp the very simple concept that, like, you know, this is a hard gig, right? Again, I keep using Face Connect as an example because it hasn't died, despite the fact that it had all the hallmarks of a corpo that was going to when it first started. This is a trade where you won't expect to make money, like even in the first like 3 years of operation, right? You are lucky if you are not losing money by the end of, you know, operating for 2-3 years. So yeah. Oh, Basind, thank you for the membership. Welcome to the Footstools. I hope you enjoy your time here. Yeah, Art and Top, Darkest Dungeon. So I vote for Armchair Modders, Ancestor of Darkest Dungeon. Look, the thing is, right, and again, I keep saying this. I'm going to be saying this like many more times in my streams. But the problem with trying to like corporatize entertainment is that entertainment is fundamentally a human thing, right? And when you're selling that, there is often the temptation to treat people as objects. And again, you can get away with that for a little bit, but like, it's not going to work long term. Not just because your talents are going to burn out, but because your audiences are not like heartless humans either, right? When they see people they like suffering, they will get mad at the people who they see as being guilty of perpetuating that suffering. So, you know. Again, all of this is like the most basic, like, be a human being, don't be stupid, like, you know, don't treat people like objects, like the most brain damaged, brain dead, like, things that you can tell someone. But it's you know, the bar's on the floor, but it's important we clear it anyways type situation. Chris Broer, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. Holy. Welcome to all the 10 new Footstools that are now able to spam being stepped on in chat. But yeah, I hope this little stream has proven to be a little, well, hopefully not a little, but if in any case, beneficial to you guys, interesting at the very least. By the way, SWOT analyses, pest analyses, this applies to like any corporation, not just VTuber corporation. So if you are yourself like a worker in a company, right, and you want to like, if any situation comes up where you're able to flex that kind of knowledge, right? By the way, if you learn anything in any of my streams and that you have the opportunity to bring that up at work to like flex to someone, right? Don't do the job, right, without getting paid, but flex it to impress. If you want to ask for a promotion or anything and you want to list that you have like, you know, the ability to, you know, you have like PR knowledge, you know specific jargon like pest, like SWOT, like, you know, all of these kinds of things, right? Just like name drop them, right? Because it's always nice to your employer when it's always nice as an employer, I should say, when you look at your employees and some of them have extra skills that might possibly save you money. Now this is where you have to do a little bit of deception, right? Where you kind of have to, like, you know, you kind of have to say that you know just enough to maybe do a little bit of a job that you don't want to take full responsibility for, but like, you know, it's something that you could maybe be considered, as like, you know, you something that might give them a reason to consider giving you more responsibilities, right? If you have the ability to like flex any of the stuff you learn on stream, then just take the opportunity and run with it. Because if you look like a more skilled employee, if you are able to actually use these concepts in your workplace, that justifies them giving you more money, potentially, right? We did SWOT regularly before the vid. Yeah. I mean, again, SWOT, pest, they're not unique to PR either, right? They are like a very common thing in a lot of corporate environments. It's just that the first time I was taught about them was in my PR unit in university. Unaware because I did an idle meeting, but thank you. It's okay. VOD's gonna be up. So, Cajun Bowser, let me take a look at what you were saying. World is not ready for that collab. Armchair Literature Devil. I don't know who that is, but I will be looking that up afterwards. Do not lie. Just don't tell them any provable wrongness. Exactly. Never lie about having a skill, but do drop information informally that implies that you have a bit more knowledge than your average, your average worker. Yeah? I'm gonna say this, don't do it, they will use you. The thing, yeah, never do something you're not paid to do. Again, this is why I would look at all of the stuff that's going wrong with, like, the way that NOA Talent's, like, web pages are being run, for example, and I would instantly come to the conclusion, okay, it's being run by someone who probably isn't being paid enough to do that job, right? So, yeah. Time to name drop managerial jargon. Unfortunately, and this does seem to be a product of the average workplace, the average corporate environment nowadays, where like buzzwords have become the default way of communication, which I despise, but it's like a common practice. So if you're able to like name drop a little bit of jargon by saying like, oh, I don't know, like, I don't know. I think our public relations strategy would be helped by a pest analysis, so that we could properly gauge the possible reactions of an audience, etc., etc. Right? It makes you sound smart. It's not saying anything if you actually understand what that means, or it's not saying that much, right? It's basically you saying the most basic, like, we need to do market research before trying to do anything, but it makes it sound smart. And that's really all that matters in a corporate environment type setting. So yeah. Cable jack. What were you saying? What was real? I'm gonna switch over to the abduction screen. I can't believe EOS VT is Quinn. I recognized her. She was involved as a manager for another Chinese VTuber agency by the name of Aurora Live VR, where she was exploited and promised to become a talent. Okay, that kind of makes sense, I suppose. That's an interesting bit of lore. That she reincarnated as a manager of a new VTuber company. I wonder if the other talents may have also come from Aurora VR then. Again, actually, while we're on the topic of Quinn and EOS, look, I'm not going to blanket state that all talent managers don't work, but I am going to point out that it doesn't have a great history of working. Like, okay, look. Even in the cases where the talent manager was able to do both of their jobs well, at least from all outside appearances, like, for example, Urara from Sundaria, right? Eventually, Urara basically had to, like, step away from the entire thing because she wasn't receiving sufficient, like, support to do both of those jobs, like, at the same time. Because being a manager is, like, really draining. And being a talent is also really draining. And on top of that, like, imagine that you're a co-founder of an organization as well. All of the possible jobs that you would need to do. The problem isn't that, I don't think that it's impossible, but I do think that it's almost impossible, and impossible for most people, given the sheer amount of demands that is going to make upon somebody. Mentally, emotionally, whatever. Financially, even. So, I mean, like, again, being a manager talent is going to require an amount of support that is probably not too sustainable, I would say. So, yeah. And again, Urara was an example of someone who was able to do both jobs competently. I would not say that that is the norm among talent managers. And I mean talent managers in the sense that they are both talent and managers at the same time. I'm just gonna end up padding my resume with so much media jargon. Honestly, if that is something that you are capable of doing, do it with my blessing. If it gets you a job, fair enough. In this economy, we need all the help we can get. Hex is graduating? Okay, I have to see this one. Hold on, let me go on to the Twitters. Hex Haywire. Oh, 1 hour ago. We hereby announce that Nijisanji will... that Hex Haywire will be graduate. Okay, well that explains all of the blatant past life stuff that's been going on over the past few months. Also the intermittent sad posting. And also the fact that his response to the... his audience situation has mostly just been sorted out yourselves. Check his subtweet. His subtweet? Hold on. Let me search up the guys. What is his name again? Like Kiryu or something? Kirio? Kiri something? I keep forgetting what Hex's like PL is. Even though like reasonably I've seen it a lot. Does anyone have the name? Kigrios or something? People were saying not termination. No, I don't think they would. Funnelist, thank you for the 5. Any plans to reenact Hex's ASMR as a tribute? Again, semi-ironic ASMR stream will be happening at some point in the future, but I don't think I would do anything sexual. Mostly because, well, I don't trust YouTube not to shoot me between the eyes for doing that. Right now, I'm tossing up a bunch of different things. Curiosifier. Okay, there we go. Ah, there we go. What was his subtweet? The rain is here. Fair enough. I really just don't be giving a fuck anymore. Honestly, understandable. If I had the same kind of managerial, like, all things aside, his colored history, his his combated past at Niji as Hex aside, if I was saddled with that kind of managerial support, I would feel the same way too, right? The guy's really been handed a bit of a, all things aside, he's really been handed a bit of a nail bomb, right? And he doesn't really have the opportunity to do much with it. So, the ASMR stream, it would be really funny if I just do like a chair creaking stream. Although there would probably be, I know there will be some sickos amongst you that will misappropriate that. But yeah, look, how Hex has handled his audience, not what I would recommend, admittedly. But it's not out of the question that his lack of involvement, his hands-off approach, is also due to management telling him not to. Because I can very easily imagine management telling their talents to allow their talent base to fester rather than risk alienating the more fanatical, but also the ones who are the more fanatical members that are also more likely to whip out their wallets. So sicklings, yeah, those are the ones I'm talking about. Again, I'm honestly amazed that they decided on sicklings as a fan name. It makes sense lore-wise. It's just, it's become a lot more, how do I say, a lot more aligned with the brand than I think anyone would have wanted. Don't worry, armchair. YouTube can't ban you for sexual noises when you stream that way. Oh, they'd find a way. They'd find a way. All it would take would be a few videos that people upload to YouTube where there is pornography that features heavy creaking noises for the bots to be trained to pick up on that as well. I would assume, right? Because again, a lot of this has to do with the fact that we have no clue how YouTube plans to like train its bots, how it does any of that, right? So, you know, it's I would not give YouTube the benefit of the doubt. Okay. Don't underestimate YouTube. Meanwhile, Hololive, you're allowed to be holy, just not be a creep. Yeah, I think that's a good line to draw in the sand, right? You never, ever want to, you know... And again, this is hard to say how much of it is like Hex leading into it too much and how much is just Niji policy at this point. But like, you know, blurring that line, blurring boundaries between like talent and audience in the way that they have routinely been doing among like, you know, the more provocative members of their talent roster, that is just not advisable in general. But yeah. Anyways. I might end stream here because I can feel my throat dying a little bit. And I do have another stream this Saturday in Australia time, Friday evening in EST time, where I will be going on stream to talk with the illustrious Random VTuber Edits about how he makes clips. The guy has, well, I mean, the guy is pretty much an anomaly, a success story in terms of what it means to be a clipper, in my opinion. And we're going to be discussing, like, you know, some of the do's and don'ts of, like, starting out as a new clipper. So if you have, you know, if you want to support the talents that are your favorite in your, like, you know, corpos, whatever, but you don't have the money to do so, clipping is a great option to do that, because you can support them by simply raising awareness of the fact that they exist, or what you find appealing about them. So, if that's something that sounds interesting to you, tune in then. Waiting room is already up, so you can just go straight over onto that if that interests you. But in any case, I will be sending you on a raid to Rima, because she is currently covering the Hex Haywire graduation, and she's doing a React stream as well, so I will be tuning in as well myself after you go in there. But in any case, I will be seeing you guys later on. When you go over to Rima's stream, when you're in her chat, please behave, show her some love, and I will see you guys next stream. I hope you guys found this one helpful. Otsu chair.